Chapter 61, Here We Go Again Konoha. The entire village was in a state of bliss and excitement. The reason behind all of this? The news that the previous Hokages had been brought to life had spread through the village like a wildfire. Mere hours after the council meeting had finished and already all of Konoha knew about the return of the fallen heroes. And everyone in the village, be it civilian or shinobi, always tried their best to walk by the Senju compound, in a desperate attempt to even catch a small glimpse of the Hokages. Every Hokage had been a friend, a leader, an icon to the people. And for those who didn't have the pleasure of knowing the legends in person, they did their best to at least see them. Tsunade had confined everyone to the compound during the last few days, waiting for the dust to settle, so to speak. It wasn't every day that the fifth Hokage barged into the roof of the newly reconstructed Hokage Tower and shouted that the previous Hokages had been resurrected to the whole village. There was no finesse in her speech. It was a single shout that left most of the people rooted in place with their jaws on the ground. Then again, finesse wasn't exactly a typical trait of the Senju clan. They tended to be louder and somewhat reckless to a fault, not to mention the unhealthy addiction to ramen. Not that Tucci was complaining, of course. The additional costumers all looking to catch a glimpse of Naruto helped a lot. But anyway, I'm digressing here. Let us focus on Naruto, who was currently laying down on his bed with Hinata sleeping next to him. It was still early in the day, so it was no surprise. What am I going to do now? Naruto thought to himself, playing with a strand of Hinata's silky hair. He had been so focused on the last 3 years of his life to train and train. His sole focus had been to become as strong as possible to take down the Akatsuki. But now that he did that, he felt disappointed? No, that wasn't it. Sad? No, that wasn't either. He felt bored. With the Akatsuki alive, there was always the threat of something sparking and throwing him into combat. Now, he spent his days dealing with the paperwork that came with the position of clan head. Maybe he wasn't cut out to become Hokage, not if he had to deal with paperwork 8 hours a day. He had to find something productive to do or he would go crazy. He still didn't know how to approach the whole bring peace to the world mission. Naruto was broken when he heard a particularly loud crash coming from the kitchen. The sound of dishes breaking and smashing to the floor came followed by a horrified screech of fear. Naruto raised an eyebrow when everything became quiet once again. Too quiet for his taste. That was why Naruto didn't even flinch in bed when the door to his room opened loudly and Kurama came running inside still in his chibi form. Naruto raised an eyebrow at the look of sheer desperation the fox had. Naruto, you've got to help me. Hide me, summon me back to the seal, anything, Kurama said quickly, his voice filled with complete despair. What did you do? Naruto asked in amusement. He looked over to see Hinata stir slowly and rub her eyes, pushing the sleep away. Morning, Hinata mumbled, watching Kurama bounce frantically on Naruto's chest. Quickly, she's coming, Kurama shouted. Who's coming? Hinata asked in confusion while Naruto just shrugged his shoulders in ignorance. Hide me, Kurama pleaded. Kurama Kuwane husky, soft voice cooed from the entrance of the room. From the sound of it was definitely female. Naruto looked over Kurama and spotted Matatabi strolling in calmly. Naruto looked back to Kurama and noticed his eyes widened with fear. Here you are, Matatabi cooed, jumping on the bed and landing on top of Hinata. Come here. Tabikin will take good care of you, she purred while Kurama backed away slowly. Naruto watched in amusement as Kurama turned to him with pleading eyes. What is wrong? Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow. Already tired of your family after only 1 week? Naruto taunted jokingly. Save me. She craves my body, Kurama said, and both Naruto and Hinata looked at each other in surprise. I didn't know you were into incest, Naruto chuckled while Kurama glared at him. So soft, Matatabi purred, rubbing herself in the sheets on top of Hinata. These sheets are so soft, what has she been drinking? Hinata asked, looking at the cat Bijou. She's starting to freak me out. Is there catnip in Konoha? Naruto asked, trying to account for Matatabi's attitude. I know that the Yamanaka and Nara clans supply the hospital with many herbs, catnip included, but I don't know if there is any in the wild, Hinata replied. You smell like the foxboy. Matatabi purred and tried to lick Hinata in the face but was pushed backwards. So she's high on that stuff, Kurama sighed in relief. She's a bijou though. That stuff shouldn't affect her, Hinata pondered while Naruto just chuckled. The best way to picture Matatabi is like a cat infused with senjutsu. Even though she was created, she shares many traits with cats in general, Naruto explained and watched as Matatabi's pupil dilated and she started rolling on the bed, wrapping herself in the blankets. Matatabi meowed happily and dropped her head, falling asleep. Safe at last, Kurama sighed in relief and dropped to the bed while Naruto just laughed. That wasn't funny, Kurama snapped. I was nearly raped by my sister, Kurama whined, putting a paw over his eyes. Knock knock, it's 6 a.m. Naruto grumbled, hiding beneath the sheets while Hinata giggled in reply, hiding as well. However, as much as Naruto wanted whoever was knocking to go away, it didn't. The knocking started becoming more and more frantic as time went by, as in mere moments the wooden door was already shaking from the poundings. Oh, for the locum in, he snapped. The wooden door slammed open and a head peeked inside the room. Hashirama, what do you want? Ghhh. Why are you naked? Naruto yelled, jumping from the bed. Hashirama was completely naked, trying desperately to hide his little Hashirama with his hands. What is wrong with you? Naruto shouted, walking up to his great-grandfather. You just don't barge into someone else's room naked. Hinata simply chose to avert her gaze. There were some things that were best left to imagination. Not that she imagined a naked Hashirama in the first place. I'll just stop thinking about it, Hinata thought, finding her quiet place for all the ruckus at 6 a.m. You've got help me, Hashirama pleaded. A hit burns, he whined. Explain, Naruto sighed. It's like this. Me and Mitaken were Hashirama struggled for words. Having sex? Naruto offered and Hashirama nodded furiously, grimacing as another wave of what seemed pain washed over him. She still hasn't full control over that paper bloodline you gave her, and in the heat of the moment Hashirama trailed off and both Naruto and Hinata's eyes widened, unintentionally drawing their eyes to Hashirama's groin area. Don't tell me that she gave you a paper cut. Down there, Naruto asked and Hashirama nodded furiously. Naruto felt a shiver run up his spine. Now fix it, Hashirama demanded, taking his hands away and displaying his manhood for all to see. Gah! Naruto yelled, looking to the side. I'm not touching your junk, you don't have to touch it. Just do the whole green thing, Hashirama pleaded, and Naruto reluctantly agreed. Naruto slowly approached and knelt to the ground, placing his hands a good foot away from him. His hands glowed green and Hashirama sighed in relief. There, Naruto said, getting up as fast as he could. Now go away and learn some decency, Naruto said, and Hashirama laughed, thanking him profoundly. That was the greatest thing I ever witnessed. The great Senju Hashirama got a paper cut in his dick, Kurama laughed, rolling on the ground. There's something wrong with your side of the family, Hinata said, deadpan. Now, Heineken. We do share the same ancestor after all. We are all descendants of Princess Kaguya, Naruto lectured while Hinata just rolled her eyes. Yes, but my family branch has some decency, at least, Hinata explained, thinking back to the Hyuga clan. Your family enslaved their own blood, Naruto replied, deadpan. Okay, point, Hinata conceded. And don't get me started on the whole decency thing, Naruto began in a sing-sang voice. You have the Byakugan, which grants you X-ray vision. Are you telling me that you never peeked beneath someone's clothing? Naruto asked in a teasing voice. Absolutely not, Hinata huffed in playful defiance. You sure? Naruto teased, rolling on top of her. You never took a peek at me before we became intimate? Naruto asked, planting a soft kiss on her neck. Oh great. They are going at it again, Kurama grumbled in thought, letting himself out of the room and dragging the unconscious Matatabi with him. He planned on chaining Matatabi somewhere just to be safe. And no, Hinata giggled from the kiss. You're lying, Hinata, Naruto smiled. I know you perved on me during our training, Naruto teased, tickling her stomach. Maybe she giggled in reply, making his grin widen. I knew it, he cheered in victory. Hinata took his momentary moment of celebration and rolled him over, pushing him to the bed and standing on top, straddling him. This is no way to treat a princess, Hinata huffed. Go make me a sandwich, she demanded playfully. You are no longer a princess, you know? Naruto asked, and Hinata just stared at him surprise. Oh, Hinata muttered, trying to hide her sad smile. She liked being called princess, it was an affectionate name. Hinata-kun, Naruto began softly. He saw her saddened expression. A princess is when they are pretty, young, naive. You're so much more than that. Our battle in Kumo opened my eyes. You are strong, stronger than I thought. And you are no longer simply pretty, you are beautiful in ways I can't explain, cheesy Hinata thought with a smile. You are a queen. My queen, Naruto finished, emphasizing on the word my. As long you be my king, Hinata said, laying down and pressing her breasts to his chest. Forever, Naruto said, kissing her lovingly. My queen with Madara. Madara sat in a stone throne, twirling a small locket of golden hair. He was lost in his thoughts that he didn't even notice Zetsu appearing in front of him. Master? Zetsu called, breaking Madara from his musings. What do you want? Madara asked evenly. Are you going to sit there all day musing about your past? Zetsu asked, and Madara raised an eyebrow in amusement. Since when do you care about what I do? Madara asked with annoyance. Because reasons, Zetsu replied cheekily. Madara grunted. Tell me, Zetsu. What is the state of the elemental nations? He asked with some curiosity. The elemental nations had been rather peaceful for around 25 years if you don't count a few slides here and there. As of now, Konoha is allied to Kiri due to their help in the Bloodline Wars. There is talk about a possible alliance between Konoha and Kumo, but that is just rumors. Suna and Iwa are also fully allied and bear a particular grudge against the Leaf. Zetsu finished. I died shortly after Minato wiped out Iwa's army, but I remember Suna being on good terms with Konoha, Madara explained. 3 years ago, Suna teamed with Orochimaru and launched a surprise invasion on Konoha. They were slaughtered and ended up losing their Kage, their only bijou, and nearly a fifth of their forces. After that, things became sour between Konoha and Suna. Zetsu explained. Wine. Madara just shook his head. Amateurs. Madara chuckled. And Iwa? He asked. They have done a few tries over the years, but nothing significant, Zetsu answered, and Madara pondered on his next move. What will you do? Zetsu asked. I guess I'll pay a visit to dear old Inoki, Madara replied, getting up. But first, I need to check on something, Madara said, and slammed his hand on the ground. Kuchios no Jutsu, summoning jutsu, Madara said, and with a mighty roar the Geto Mazo burst from the ground. Madara looked at the statue and focused on linking up with it. Tell me, Zetsu. Madara began with a normal tone. What is wrong with this picture? He asked, pointing towards the Geto Mazo in front of him. I don't understand, Master. Zetsu cocked his head in confusion. The Geto Mazo seems to be missing a couple bijou, Madara replied with annoyance. You told me that Fugaku and Nagato had managed to capture the Nibi, Sanbai, Yanbi, Gobi, and the Rokubi. And yet, the Geto Mazo is empty, Madara informed him. I don't know, Master. Where are my eyes? Madara asked, trying his best to hide his annoyance at Zetsu. Konan. Zetsu stammered when he felt Madara's killing intent rising. Zetsu. Madara growled. Where is my Rinnegan? He asked. Nagato had them, but after the battle they were gone. Zetsu gulped under Madara's glare. Konan will know, ask her, Zetsu answered quickly. And where is Konan? Madara asked. Amagakure, Zetsu replied. Take me there, Madara ordered, and Zetsu nodded quickly, disappearing into the ground. Next time maybe I should give more intelligence to my creations. Zetsu was almost as dumb as a rock, Madara sighed, shaking his head. Hidden Rain Village. This concludes this meeting. Thank you all, Konan said, getting up and leaving the meeting room. The Hidden Rain Village was going well enough, but things were more difficult to handle without Nagato there. He was the leader, he knew how to run things better than her. Will do, Lady Konan, Koro replied and walked away. Konan sighed and walked towards Pain's tower. She chuckled softly at the name, but didn't have the heart to change it. The tower and the whole village was her memento to Nagato and Yahiko. She stepped inside the room and felt unusually nervous. She stood on the doorway. The entire room was pitch black, with a few thunders lighting up the room momentarily. A loud thunder roared in the sky and gave enough light for Conan to notice the outline of a man sitting on Nagato's chair. "Who are you?" Conan asked, her voice taking a dangerous tone. "Who knows?" The figure chuckled and Conan saw that the figure was definitely male from the deep voice. "What do you want?" she asked firmly. Her body already showing several cracks as her bloodline triggered into action, expecting battle. "What belongs to me?" the man replied, getting up and started walking forward. Conan took a step back and prepared herself for battle as the man walked forward, still shrouded in darkness. Step another thunder lit the room, enough to show the man's feet and upper legs. He was clad in samurai-like red armor. Step Conan looked up as the man approached, one step at the time. Her eyes widened when another thunder lit the room and showed the man's face. Blood-red eyes with long, black, spiky hair. "Uchiha Madara," Conan whispered, finally noticing the white Zetsu in the corner, watching everything. "So that Toby fellow worked for you?" Conan asked while Madara chuckled. "Worked?" Madara asked with amusement. "You seem to be mistaken." "He was my pawn, it's as simple as that." "Yes," Conan drawled. She didn't exactly have much love for Toby either. "What do you want?" she asked. "What belongs to me?" Madara replied once more. Conan just stared blankly at him. "My eyes." "I want my Rinnegan back," Madara said, and Conan's eyes widened. "Don't be so surprised. I gave him the Rinnegan to begin with. He was supposed to bring me back with it, but alas, not everything worked out as I planned." Madara chuckled. "I don't know," Conan said neutrally. "Let's us agree to not lie to each other, okay?" Madara asked and Conan didn't reply. "I will ask again. Where is my Rinnegan?" Madara stressed. "I don't." Conan didn't even see it coming. One moment Madara was a few feet away, the other he was standing in front of her, his right arm extended. Conan received a strong punch to the stomach. It felt like being hit by a train. She felt blood vessels burst, her diaphragm collapse from the pressure. Her knees buckled from the force of the blow, and as she went down, she swore she heard a cracking noise ricochet between her ribs. She landed on her knees, spewing out blood from her mouth like a fountain. "What did we agree on?" Madara asked, gently rising Conan's chin upwards. He noticed the pained and bloodied expression on her face. "Now, where are my eyes?" Madara asked calmly. "Where you?" Conan coughed. "Will never get them." Conan chuckled weakly and Madara dropped her to the floor. "Why can't people just answer truthfully?" Madara sighed. "You could have lived, you know." "I only wanted the Rinnegan, but now I guess I'll keep the Rain Village as well," Madara said with a dark smile. Conan rose as fast as she could to protest, but Madara slammed his hand over her chest. "Ninjendo, human path." Madara ripped Conan's soul out of her body, reading her mind in the process. Conan's body toppled to the floor, her eyes open wide and staring blankly into nowhere. "Naruto," Madara sighed. "You were getting on my nerves and I didn't even met you with Naruto." "Naruto, what are you doing here?" Tsunade asked, seeing Naruto strolling inside her office carelessly and plopping down to the couch. "Stuff." Naruto replied tiredly and leaned back on couch, releasing a sigh of bliss. Tsunade left him be and focused back on the paperwork reproducing on the desk. Naruto groaned and Tsunade looked up, but he still had his eyes closed. 5 minutes later Naruto groaned again and Tsunade's eyes twitched. Naruto groaned again and Tsunade jumped to her feet. "Naruto," she snapped. "What are you doing here?" she snarled. "Protecting you from assassins," Naruto replied offhandedly, looking at the ceiling. "Doesn't anyone ever attack you?" Naruto asked, and he could feel the hidden Umbu shake their heads in disbelief. "Danzo tried it 2 weeks ago," Tsunade informed him and sat back down, having taken out her frustrations with the previous shout. Naruto was about to groan again and most likely be punched out of the room by Tsunade, when there was a soft knock on the door. "Come in," Tsunade replied, welcoming any type of break that didn't originate from Naruto. Shizune's head peeked inside the room. There is a team from IWA wishing to speak to you. They say it's urgent. Shizune informed, and both Naruto and Tsunade raised an eyebrow. Send them, and Tsunade replied, and Shizune opened the door fully. A team of 3 stepped inside the room, flanked by 2A and BU. Naruto looked up from the couch and spotted familiar faces in all 3 of them, some friendlier than others. Hokage-sama, all 3 shinobi bowed slightly as a sign of respect, even if a particular brash male in the team didn't have any. Lord Senju, Kuratsuchi said, turning towards Naruto and bowing once more. Naruto raised an eyebrow at the greeting but moved on. Kuratsuchi, Naruto replied, and she nodded once. Taiseki, Naruto said, and the man huffed. Runchan, Naruto said happily, and the girl waved shyly. Congratulations on making jounin. I knew you had it in you, Naruto said, and Ren nodded quickly, trying desperately to cool down her cheeks. Naruto, Tsunade said, breaking the conversation. Stop hitting on the girl. You are married man for Kami's sake. Tsunade laughed while Naruto just shook his head in amusement. Anyway, Tsunade began. What's the urgency in speaking to me? Tsunade asked. Our mission was to deliver this to you, Kuratsuchi informed the Hokage, stepping forward and placing a single scroll on the desk. What is this about? Tsunade asked with curiosity, picking the scroll. Lord Tsuchikage is calling for a meeting between all 5 Kages, Kuratsuchi replied, and Tsunade's head snapped up from the scroll. The 5 Kage summit was extremely rare, usually only occurring in times of war or peace talks. Akatsuki, Tsunade thought, her eyes quickly reading through the contents of the scroll. She looked sideways to Naruto, who was entertained by talking to Ren and completely oblivious to what Kuratsuchi had said. I see, Tsunade simply replied. Time and location? Tsunade asked formally. 5 days from now. Lord Tsuchikage chose Land of Iron due to its security and neutrality, Kuratsuchi explained, and Tsunade nodded. I'll be there, Tsunade replied, stamping the documents and handing them over to Kuratsuchi. Thank you for your time, Hokage-sama. Kuratsuchi bowed as she and her team left the room. I'm taking you with me, Tsunade said towards Naruto, who nodded in acknowledgement. I never met Oanoki personally, Naruto muttered, dropping his head back to the couch. Minutes went by and Naruto started groaning again, much to Tsunade's annoyance. This is boring, Naruto sighed, waving his arms in frustration. Naruto, Tsunade began sweetly. Go away, Naruto gulped and bolted out of the room, not wanting to unleash the wrath of Senju. Tsunade. Leave, Mito said politely. Naruto gulped and ran away from the village's walls, where Mito was looking at the perimeter seals. Go away, Minato said, pushing Naruto out of the compound. The boy was getting on his nerves. Out, Tobirama shouted, kicking Naruto out of the Umbu division on the other side of the village. This sucks, Naruto thought to himself, walking aimlessly. Everyone was busy and now Naruto had nothing to do but to stroll around Konoha. He sighed and spotted Konohamaru and the gang a few feet away. Hey, Konohamaru! Naruto shouted, approaching him, Moegi and Udon. Yo, boss! Konohamaru greeted him enthusiastically. Whatcha doing here? Konohamaru asked. Want to learn a new technique? Naruto offered, and Konohamaru's eyes sparkled with happiness. Of Koritai Taitai, Konohamaru yelled in pain since Moegi was tugging rather harshly on his ear. He won't be learning anything today. We have a mission, Moegi huffed, keeping Konohamaru in line before he and Naruto bolted to some training ground. I guess, Konohamaru muttered, nursing his swollen ear. I'll see you later, Konohamaru said, and left with his team towards the gates. What am I going to do? Naruto whined and thought, dropping his head. There is always ramen, Naruto thought, his eyes lighting up as he ran at full speed towards Ichiraku's, swearing to set a new record today. On the other side of town, Tucci felt a shiver crawl up his spine, and for the life of him, he couldn't tell if what was coming was a good or bad thing. Yo, old man, Naruto called, pushing the curtains wide open and sitting in one of the stools. Naruto-kun Iam greeted him cheerily. Iamek-and Naruto cheered, seeing Tucci's daughter at the counter. It's been a while, Naruto said, and Iam nodded. So, how many? Iam asked cheekily while Naruto laughed in reply. I'll beg, Arghh, Naruto was saying when a crippling headache rendered him to the floor. Naruto-kun I am yelled, jumping over the counter. She knelt beside him and helped turning him around, cradling his head. Naruto was breathing hard and had a small trail of blood leaking from both eyes, his manjikyu turned on at full power. 2. Fine. Naruto struggled to answer, his breathing slowly returning to normal. You are not fine, I am snapped, taking a tissue from her pockets and cleaning his face. This is not fine, she said, showing Naruto the bloodied napkin. Naruto looked at the napkin and brought a hand to his own face, gently running his fingers over his cheek. He looked at his hand and grimaced when he spotted the blood smeared over the skin. I'm good, I am, Naruto said, dropping the affectionate name and getting up. I've got to go, Naruto said and rushed away. What happened? Kurama asked with apprehension. I felt a massive chakra surge from your eyes. Someone ripped the Geto Mazo out of my Kamui dimension, Naruto replied, rushing to the hospital. It's not possible, Kurama said in disbelief. You better believe it because it's not there anymore, Naruto replied. With Hinata was having a rather peaceful day at the hospital. She had completed her daily clinic hours and was now in her own private laboratory, workings on her research. She let out a small shriek of surprise when the door burst open and Naruto rushed inside. Where's the Rinnegan? Naruto asked immediately. While the Rinnegan, Naruto asked once more. Why is there dried blood on your face? Hinata asked, concerned. Hinata-kun, I'm fine, Naruto reassured her, placing a single hand on her shoulder. He took a deep breath to calm down. Where is the Rinnegan? Naruto asked and Hinata motioned for him to follow. Hinata went to a fridge that stood nearby and opened the door. She took out a single vial and Naruto could see 2 floating eyeballs in the midst of the greenish liquid. That's not possible, Naruto said, looking in shock at the Rinnegan from Nagato. He had given it to Hinata so she could run a few tests and perhaps find out who it belonged to. After all, you need both Uchiha and Senju blood to achieve the Rinnegan, and both clans were from the leaf. What's not possible, Naruto-kun? You are not making any sense, Hinata replied softly and watched as Naruto sat down and brought his hands to his head. Someone summoned the Geto Mazo, Naruto explained and Hinata's eyes widened. Someone ripped it out of my Kamui dimension. That alone takes a powerful chakra or someone with a lot to use, and I mean a lot, Hokage at least. Naruto explained. What are you going to do? Hinata asked softly. We can't wait any longer. See if you can speed up the DNA results of the eyes, Naruto explained and Hinata nodded, going back to work at full speed. And you? Hinata asked, never looking off the microscope. I'm going to train, Naruto replied and was about to vanish in a flash when he saw Hinata stumble. He was beside her in the blink of an eye and gently grabbed her. You all right? He asked, concern in his tone. I just felt lightheaded for a moment, Hinata answered, steadying herself once more. My eyes hurt. I guess I'm tired, Hinata mumbled, rubbing her eyes to dull the slight pain she had. Don't push yourself too hard, Hinata-kun. Naruto pecked her cheek and vanished in a flash. Hinata rubbed her eyes once more before going back to work. Later that day, Senju compound, there was a somber mood at the Senju compound. Especially around the bijou, since they heard from Naruto the possible existence of another Rinnegan somewhere out there. They thought they were free at last, free of human control. But fate, it seemed, had another plans for them. The only safe place now was in Konoha. Naruto knew that the Geto Mazo was far away and that was enough for him, for now. It was a good thing he hadn't sealed it back to the moon, otherwise he would never have known if someone else had summoned it back here, to the earth. Every dragon, including Tsunade and the pervert, were gathered in the kitchen. They waited in silence for Hinata to arrive with the DNA results. Enough of this, Tsunade said sharply, snapping everyone from their thoughts. It's not like the statue had the bijou in them. They only have a hollow husk, she said. It's not about the bijou. It's about existing another pair of eyes somewhere out there, Naruto stated. It's just a Rinnegan, Tsunade said, crossing his arms while Naruto shook his head. You have no idea the full power of the Rinnegan. Naruto let out a hollow chuckle. It's not just another pair of eyes like the Sharingan or a Byakugan. Sure, you can access some nifty jutsus with him, but that is not that I'm talking about. They aren't called the eyes of God for no good reason. Bringing back the dead dove, it's just a parlor trick. With barely a year of experience in using the Rinnegan, I already have enough skill with it to destroy the moon and create another just like it, Naruto said, and everyone's jaw dropped. The human body peaks at around 25 years old, which means I will only get stronger until then. And as I age, so will my skill and control over the Rinnegan. Eventually, there will be nothing stopping me from destroying this universe and simply creating one at my own image, Naruto said, and everyone just stared at him. The Rinnegan offers me absolute control over life, death, time, space, destruction, and creation itself. I can already destroy and create many things. In time, dimension hopping will become as easy as breathing. The next step would be perfect control over the yin-yang released itself, allowing me to use every single jutsu in the world, be it bloodline or not. So you see? The Rinnegan isn't just some Naruto finished, and everyone was slack-jawed at the explanation. But you aren't going to, are you? Tsunade asked wearily, seeing Naruto frown his eyebrows in confusion. Destroy the world and create another in your image? Tsunade gulped and everyone stared at Naruto, who held a smirk. Maybe, Naruto replied mysteriously while Tsunade just stared at him blankly. Just joking. But you know the stories of the Rinnegan very well. It is said that in times when the world is in disorder, a person is sent down from the heavens to become either a god of creation who will calm the world, or a destroyer who will reduce everything into nothingness, Naruto finished. Some jewel we got from heaven, now muttered and smirked towards Naruto. Hey, he snapped. I take offense to that. I'm very, Hinata. Naruto stopped mid-sentence when everyone heard Hinata enter the room. I've got some good and bad news, Hinata said, sitting down and placing a small folder with documents on the table. Which ones you want first? She asked. Let's start with the bad ones so that the good news can cheer us up, Naruto said, and Hinata nodded. The bad news is that I couldn't find an exact match on the database, Hinata informed, and Naruto shrugged his shoulders. It was to be expected. And the good news? He asked. I managed to find an exact match on the database, Hinata giggled, and Naruto stared at her blankly. I'm confused, he simply said. I think this Rinnegan is artificial to some degree, Hinata said thoughtfully. What do you mean by artificial? Tobirama asked, leaning into the conversation. Take Naruto-kun for example, Hinata began, pointing towards the blonde. He has a Rinnegan due to the Uchiha and Senju blood. However, he only has one DNA, like everyone else. He has a DNA signature, and on that, we can trace several Uchiha and Senju markers, Hinata explained, and everyone nodded in acknowledgement. This Rinnegan, however, has two different strands of DNA, Hinata said, and Tsunade's eyes widened. It would seem someone mixed Uchiha and Senju blood together and hoped for the best. The good news is that I don't think this Rinnegan is fully functional, since both bloodlines aren't properly merged like Naruto's. In this Rinnegan, both bloodlines are always fighting each other for dominance, Hinata finished and waited for everyone to process the information. And how does it not being fully functional translate into its abilities? Naruto asked. He needed to know that information desperately. I can only speculate about that, Naruto-kun. But if I had to guess, since both yin and yang energies aren't properly balanced, he might be able to access the six paths, maybe a few limbo techniques, but I don't think yin-yang release would be possible, Hinata finished, and Naruto released a sigh of relief he didn't know he was holding. I'll sleep better tonight knowing this Rinnegan is weaker, but what about the other one out there, the one who summoned the Geto Mazo? Hashirama asked. We don't know who is out there. The only thing we can do is wait for that someone to make his move. The good news is that he or she only possessed the empty husk, since I had already extracted the bijou. But, if they knew that the statue had bijou inside, then they will know that someone else has a Rinnegan as well, Naruto explained. It's like a game of cat and mouse, Tobirama sighed while Hashirama patted his back. Enough about the artificial Rinnegan. What are the DNA results? Tsunade asked with curiosity. Like I said, I managed to isolate two different strands of DNA. I found a perfect match to the Senju DNA, Hinata said, pushing the report towards Tsunade, who swiftly picked it up. 100% match to Senju, Hashirama, Tsunade said, and everyone's head snapped towards Hashirama. What? He snapped. Are you telling me that there is a piece of me in there? Hashirama shouted, pointing to the floating eyeballs in the flask. Unfortunately, getting someone else's DNA is fairly easy. You only need a piece of hair, a little blood. A simple spar would suffice. Tsunade sighed and closed the report and picked up the other one. She quickly read through the details and her head snapped towards Minato. What? Minato asked, confused, seeing Tsunade's gaze on him. Uchiha DNA, 25% match to Minato, Tsunade said. And 25% means? Minato asked, gulping under all the attention he was receiving. Grandfathers, grandmothers, aunts, uncles, half-siblings, double first cousins, Hinata informed. Give me the isolated Uchiha DNA, Naruto said, and Hinata threw him a vial. On Mayatan, Banbutsu Sozo, creation of all things, Naruto said, and the glass vial started floating on his hand. The glass instantly shattered, leaving behind only the genetic material. Everyone watched with enrapt attention as Naruto created a body from a small sample of DNA. As the body started forming and growing, anyone could clearly see he was male, with long black hair, with a slight tinge of blue. His bangs parted down the center of his face to frame both sides of it. Shit, Tobirama said, jumping to his feet instinctively. He looks familiar now, muttered. Who is that? Tsunade asked towards Tobirama and Hashirama. Judging from their expressions, they knew very well who laid on the ground, breathing evenly. Groaned the person on the ground, groaned just before opening his eyes, and almost immediately, a familiar red color swarmed his eyes. Uchiha Izuna. Chapter 62, All Hail the King. Previously, Shit, Tobirama said, jumping to his feet instinctively. He looks familiar now, muttered. Who is that? Tsunade asked towards Tobirama and Hashirama. Judging from their expressions, they knew very well who laid on the ground, breathing evenly. Groaned the person on the ground, groaned just before opening his eyes, and almost immediately, a familiar red color swarmed his eyes. Uchiha Izuna, now where am I? Izuna wondered. He remembered dying. Correction, he remembered he was going to die. He knew that once he fell asleep he wouldn't awake again. And yet, he felt awake. He could hear a multitude of people around him. Talking. Rather loudly, he might add. Shit, Izuna heard a shout and he felt he knew that voice. He was familiar with another one. His body felt weird, it was like every sense was different from what he remembered, but in a good way. He no longer had that constant little pain in his hands from the multiple fractures he had during his life. Who is that? A female voice this time. Unknown to him as well. Izuna thought he had observed long enough and decided to open his eyes. He involuntarily let out a groan as he tried to at least sit up. He opened his eyes, squinting at the brightness of the room. His eyes hurt slightly, as if they had never experienced light at all. Due to the pain in his eyes, he instinctively activated his Sharingan. Izuna opened his blood-red eyes and the first thing he saw was a lot of people in front of him. He quickly skimmed over the faces, all of them strangers to him. Until his eyes latched on a very specific person who had white, spiky hair and 3 red markings on his face. Ba, Tobirama said, curling his lips in distaste. Tobirama, Izuna shouted, startling everybody and jumping to his feet. His right hand instinctively went to a single tiger hand seal. Katan, JRHH, Izuna gurgled, beginning a fire technique only for Naruto to blitz towards him. Naruto grabbed Izuna by the neck and slammed him on the ground. Traitor, Izuna roared, looking at the blazing Sharingan eyes of the man restraining him. Let me go or you will die, screaming alongside him. Naruto, however, simply disregarded his shouts and unleashed a small pulse of lighting chakra, enough to disrupt Izuna's own network. Nizen, brother, Izuna croaked in thought, blacking out. His last images were that of a man with a Sharingan that strongly resembled his older brother. What is wrong with you? Tobirama snapped at Naruto. You just don't bring an Uchiha back to life like that and don't expect reprisals. He only attacked because he saw you, Naruto countered, picking Izuna and wrapping his arms and legs together. I guess you two have a history, Naruto said. You could say that. He was my Madara, Tobirama explained, putting things into perspective. I killed him though, Tobirama said, and everyone's sweat dropped. I have to agree with Tobirama, Naruto-kun. Bringing back a Kage-level shinobi without preparing for it was rather reckless, Hinata stated. Naruto just shrugged his shoulders as he finished tying Izuna. Why did you bring him back in the first place? Hashirama asked. Answers, Naruto replied. I want to know what happened to his eyes and how they turned into a Rinnegan. Well, now began. We know that Madara stole his eyes, and that's a lie, Izuna snarled, awake once again. Everyone turned towards the tied Uchiha. That is a lie. I was dying, so I gave him my eyes voluntarily. He was my brother, we would never harm one another. Izuna said, spatting his answer at the female Uchiha. Well, that answers that, Itachi said thoughtfully. Is that true? Naruto asked, and Izuna nodded firmly. Interesting, Naruto muttered, bringing his hand to his chin. Why did you give him the eyes in the first place? We come from the pure bloodline. We don't get blind from using the Manjikyu, Naruto asked. Pure blood? Blind? What are you talking about? Izuna asked, annoyed by such senseless words. Never mind all of that. Why did you give him your eyes? Naruto asked, and Izuna raised an eyebrow. And why should I tell you anything? Izuna asked with amusement. I'm all tied up. You didn't even offer refreshments to your cooperating prisoner, Izuna chuckled while Naruto didn't seem too happy. Answer me one question and I shall answer yours in reply, Izuna offered with a grin. Fine, Naruto sighed. Who are you? Izuna asked the blonde. Was the blonde related to his brother? They certainly looked alike aside from the blonde hair and strange whisker marks. Senju, Naruto answered, making Izuna narrow his eyes. You have the Sharingan like me. Why are you called Senju? Izuna asked sharply. My father was an Uchiha and my mother a Senju. I had to pick one, Naruto said, shrugging his shoulders. You lie, Izuna said with a harsh tone. The Uchiha and Senju clans have been adversaries since the dawn of time. Neither member of the clans would mingle with each other. Not in these times of war, Izuna finished. Told you, Tobirama said. Bringing someone who died so long ago was rushed died? Izuna wondered softly. I remember dying. How is it I am here? Izuna asked with confusion. I brought you back, Naruto answered truthfully. No one can bring back the dead, Izuna countered. The shinobi world has changed a lot. You have been dead for a long time, great uncle, Naruto said, making Izuna's eyes widen in surprise. Only Madara was left alive. So that means that you are his grandson. Prove it. Izuna challenged. Izuna narrowed his eyes when he noticed Naruto's Sharingan morph into a Manjikyu. Another one, Izuna thought with surprise. He watched the space swirl in front of him. Madara's war fan came out of Naruto's dimension. So it is true after all, Izuna sighed and looked up, spotting another blonde man within the crowd room. Naruto caught Izuna's eyes and smirked. Meet Madara's son and my father, Naruto said, pushing Minato forward. Nice to meet you, Uncle, Minato said awkwardly. You are my brother's son? Izuna asked in disbelief. Minato simply nodded. I don't see it, Izuna stated, making Minato drop his head. It's the hair, dear. Kushina patted Minato's back. Tell me, Izuna began. How long has it been? It's a strange sight for me to see several Senju and Uchiha clan members sitting in the same room so peacefully. Times have changed, Izuna Hashirama said, making Izuna glare at the Senju. The shinobi world is no longer a battlefield like we knew it. Instead of single clans, there are now shinobi villages. Me and Madara brought our clans together and founded the first of many villages. As of now, there are 5 great nations. There is the Hidden Cloud Village in the Lighting Country, ruled by the Raikage. The Hidden Sand Village in the Wind Country, ruled by the Kazekage. The Hidden Mist Village in Water Country, ruled by Mizukage. The Hidden Rock Village in the Earth Country, ruled by the Tsuchikage. I think you may have heard of him. The current Tsuchikage is Owanoki. Hashirama said, and Izuna nodded. He had heard the name of that talented brat before. And finally, The Hidden Leaf Village in the Fire Country, ruled by the fifth Hokage, Senju Tsunade, my daughter Hashirama said, pointing towards the busty blonde. I seriously doubt Madarani ever agreed to team up with you after everything Izuna said softly. About the eyes, Naruto trailed off. I suppose you answered enough of my questions, Izuna said thoughtfully. It's simple really. I was dying so I gave them to Madarani, but why give them? We don't get blind from overusing the Manjikyu, Naruto stated, making Izuna's eyes twitch in annoyance. I know we don't get blind, you fool, Izuna scowled. Madara was injured in the battlefield. He was slowly losing his sight, and the more he pushed his Sharingan and Manjikyu, the more he aggravated his condition. We didn't exactly have access to proper healthcare back then, and I guess you died shortly after giving him your eyes? Naruto wondered and Izuna nodded. So this is Madara's Rinnegan, Naruto said, and Izuna's head snapped to the flask on the table. I wonder how Nagato had them in the first place, Naruto muttered out loud. Rinnegan? Are those Madarani's eyes? Izuna wondered in thought, looking at the two floating ice balls. We have two accounted Rinnegan users. You and Madara, Tobirama said, and Izuna's eyes widened in disbelief. He turned to Blonde and looked at him in both confusion and intrigue. Who do you think is out there with another Rinnegan? Tobirama threw the question into the air. How could I have forgotten? Naruto face-palmed while everybody looked at him in confusion. I forgot about Zetsu, Naruto said, remembering the last Akatsuki member. What's so special about Zetsu? From our intel, he was the reckoned member of the group, and that was about it, Hashirama replied, confused. White Zetsu, yes, but the black Zetsu was different. When I talked to all of the Akatsuki, I felt his chakra. It was so similar to my and father's chakra that it was scary, Naruto said, and let the information hand in the air. Do we have Madara's DNA on store? Naruto asked. You are not bringing back Madara, Tobirama snapped towards the blonde. You fool, do you want a war in your hands? Tobirama roared and everyone looked at him with surprise. Tobirama was always a collected individual. Easy, Tobi, Naruto said, hoping to calm his uncle. How about I use the Edo Tensei? That gives me control over him? Naruto offered, making Tobirama glare at him even harder. You are a fool. Madara had one of the most powerful chakras I have ever felt. And while yours is slightly more powerful, I doubt even you would be able to bind him to your will, Tobirama said drily. Relax, Tobirama, Hinata began. We don't have his genetic material, otherwise the eyes would have found a 50% match towards him, Hinata explained, and Tobirama sighed in relief, slumping to the couch. Thank God for that, Tobirama replied. I thought you liked Madara? Naruto asked, confused. As if Izuna chuckled. I did, Tobirama replied, making Izuna's eyes bulge out. He and Izuna over there were the only Uchihas I respected back then why all the panic? Hinata asked. Because Madara is both stubborn and volatile, not to mention as powerful as Hashirama when he supposedly died. If you get an idea into his head, sheesh, you will never get the end of it, Tobirama said, and everyone's sweat dropped. I have to agree on that, Izuna chimed in. Oh, you are still here, Tobirama stated, making everyone sweat drop. Of course I'm still here, you bastard, Izuna snarled. What are you going to do with him? Hashirama asked. He didn't expect Naruto to resurrect someone purely for answers. I say we kill him and be done with this, Tobirama said, crossing his arms and looking pointedly at Naruto. Izuna grunted. He would embrace death head-on. Besides, being dead wasn't so bad, it was rather peaceful. I suppose, Naruto said, his eyes turning into the Rinnegan as he placed a single hand on Izuna's head. Ningen, wait, Hinata said, stopping Naruto from removing Izuna's soul. Izuna opened his eyes and looked at the soul Hyuga in the room. This is what I talked about back in Kiri. When you can give life with a mere snap of a finger, you tend to lose the notion of life itself, Hinata explained. Could you be any more cryptic, Hashirama groaned. What I'm trying to say is that all life is important, Hinata began softly. It doesn't matter if it came from Naruto-kun or Kami herself. Every life is important and to be protected, Hinata finished, and Naruto sighed, stepping back. You owe your life to my wife. Be thankful she has a kind heart, Naruto said. Izuna grunted. Please, the Uchiha in him had pride. He would never thank an enemy for sparing his life. That still doesn't resolve his fate, Minato said. Just to be clear, Tsunade began sharply. I don't want a rogue Uchiha running rampart in my village, Naruto hummed, bringing a hand to his chin. Tell me, Izuna. You still don't think that Hashirama and Madara teamed up for the greater good? Naruto asked, and Hinata smiled, knowing where Naruto was taking this. Naruto was giving Izuna something that all Uchihas treasured above all else. Family. Come, Naruto said, releasing Izuna from his binds and motioning him to follow him. Let me show you what Madara and Hashirama built together. Naruto smiled, leading Izuna outside of the compound and into the village that his brother had built. Outside of Senju compound, Konoha, hang on tight, Naruto said, placing a hand on Izuna's shoulder and flashing both of them towards the Hokage mountain. What was that? Izuna groaned, feeling the world dancing around him. It was that blasted technique from Tobirama. Izuna snarled. Relax, Izuna, Naruto said, calming the Uchiha. You are among family. There are no enemies here, Naruto said. Izuna grumbled at being ordered around by some brat but reluctantly followed. This, Naruto said, stepping to the ledge of the Hokage mountain and gazing into the village. Wow, Izuna breathed out, looking at all the light in the village. This is the Hidden Leaf Village, founded by Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Madara, Naruto said, and Izuna just looked in amazement. During the night, Konoha was truly an amazing sight to behold. Hidden Leaf Village? Izuna asked, confused. Don't blame me or Hashirama for the name. It was Madara that came up with it, Naruto chuckled while Izuna looked at Naruto in disbelief. He grunted. Naruto smiled and placed a hand on his shoulder. Moving on, Naruto said, and flashed them both to the streets of Konoha. Even at nightfall the village was bustling with activity. How many clans live here? Izuna asked, walking down the streets and looking around. Hyuga, Akimichi, Nara, Yamanaka, Aburame, Senju, Inazuka, Kurama, and several smaller ones, Naruto explained. No Uchiha clan? Izuna asked, confused, and saw Naruto flinch. Yes, Naruto began slowly. The Uchiha clan lived here until a few years ago, Naruto said, hoping to not lose Izuna after this. What happened? Izuna asked, his voice taking a dangerous tone. Greed, Naruto replied, and Izuna stopping walking, looking at him in disbelief. The only Uchihas alive now are me, Itachi, now, my father, and you, Naruto said. What happened? Izuna asked sadly. I killed them, Naruto said bluntly, and Izuna's jaw dropped. You did what? Izuna asked coldly. His Sharingan was turned on and glaring at Naruto. The clan leader at the time was a fool with delusions of grandeur. He wanted the world in his pocket. He wanted power, and save for a few people, all of the clan supported him. He even unleashed the Kyuubi in this village, killing thousands of innocents just to try and become Hokage. So I took steps and killed them all, Naruto said without remorse. How could you just kill them like that? Izuna snarled, his fists shaking from anger. They were family. You can hate me all you want, but it was necessary. They wanted to destroy the very thing Hashirama and Madara built. Even Madara left the village shortly after its creation because he got fed up with his clan, Naruto explained, but Izuna showed no intention of calming down. Izuna clenched his fists so hard that the knuckles were becoming white. He looked towards the blonde and lashed out. Naruto saw it coming. He figured Izuna would come at him. Naruto took the punch head-on, staggering backwards slightly. Feeling better? Naruto asked, licking the blood from his lips. Izuna scoffed and punched him once more. Go ahead. If it makes you feel better, Naruto said plainly. Izuna went for a third punch but stopped midway and took a step back. I'm good, Izuna said, sighing. Let's go eat something, Naruto said, placing a hand on Izuna's shoulder and leading him away. Izuna looked up and saw his busted lip had already healed. Your lip? How? Izuna asked in disbelief. Let's just say I have an advanced healing factor, Naruto explained. Izuna just looked at him in slight suspicion, but if he could bring back the dead, then a healing factor wasn't that surprising. Izuna ended up shrugging his shoulders and tagging along with Naruto in silence. "Here we are," Naruto said, stopping in front of a small restaurant with several stools. "A ramen bar." Izuna curled his lips in disgust. "Why did it have to be ramen? Gross stuff," Izuna said, and Naruto's eyes widened. "Ramen is food of the gods," Naruto said, feeling like Izuna had just insulted a higher deity. Naruto pushed Izuna inside, who reluctantly sat on one of the stools. "2 bowls of ramen, old man," Naruto called out. Tucci nodded and went to work. A few minutes later, both Naruto and Izuna were served with a steaming bowl of hot ramen. "Wait!" Naruto yelled, stopping Izuna from dipping into his meal. "What now?" Izuna groaned, almost childlike. "First, you inhale this godly scent," Naruto said as he lowered his head and inhaled the steam rising from the bowl. "Then we taste the exotic flavor of the godly soup," Naruto said, taking a small sip from the bowl. Izuna's sweat dropped at his behavior, but Naruto wasn't finished. "And finally, you eat the noodles, relinquishing on the softness and flavor they carry. Only when you have finished these important 3 steps you may feast on your meal like a hungry bear." Naruto finished and Izuna was looking at him like he was growing a second head. Tucci was just nodding in acknowledgement. Whatever Izuna said, and picked the bowl, nearly swallowing his meal in an instant. "And oh," Naruto whined, seeing his teachings gone to waste. "It wasn't half bad," Izuna said, placing the bowl down. He looked over to see Naruto mopping over his own bowl. "Say, Tukusin," Izuna began, drawing the attention of the ramen chef. "Who founded Konoha?" Izuna asked. "Really?" Naruto thought, nearly face-palming. He's asking Tucci of all people. Tucci was taken back from the question. He had been asked a lot of stuff, but this was a first. Tucci stammered, looking over to Naruto, who was eating his ramen like nothing had happened. "Senju Hashirama and Uchiha Madara," Tucci replied. It was basic knowledge after all. Izuna said nothing more and waited for Naruto to finish in silence. "Ready to go home?" Naruto asked. "Your home isn't my home," Izuna said defiantly. "It will be." "Give it time," Naruto sighed, flashing both Uchihas to the Senju compound. Next day morning, Hinata-kun, Naruto said, kissing her head as he sat down at the table for breakfast. He yawned and rubbed his eyes, pushing the lack of sleep away. Last night's tour around the village had taken longer than he anticipated. "He's gone," Tobirama shouted as he rushed into the kitchen, slamming the doors open. "Who's gone?" Hinata asked, munching on some toast. Izuna, Naruto answered, eating his cereal peacefully. "You knew?" Tobirama seethed. "Of course I knew. I'm not naive enough to just drop Izuna into one of the rooms and hope he doesn't kill us in our sleep." Naruto chuckled and looked towards Itachi, who didn't seem to like the joke. "I let him leave," Naruto said, and Tobirama sputtered in reply. "Why?" Tobirama, in disbelief. "Because we want his loyalty." Hinata began just as Naruto opened his mouth to reply. "We want him to choose to live with us by his own free will. He was born in a different time than ours and never got to experience this village system like you and Hashirama. Telling him that Konoha was built by Madara and trapping him here would more harm than good. He needs to choose by himself where he stands in this new world," Hinata explained, and Naruto nodded. "You took the words from my mouth." Naruto nodded until a thought crossed his mind. "That's rather creepy, how you said exactly what I wanted to say. Maybe I should stop feasting on your brains at night," Hinata said thoughtfully, sticking her tongue out. "The brains from which head?" Naruto whispered huskily into her ear. "That's lame," she groaned in reply while Naruto laughed. "You are a pervert. No matter how much you deny it," Kurama muttered from his mind. "So you let him go just like that?" Tobirama asked, shaking his head disappointment. Naruto and him did agreed in a lot of stuff, but Naruto had more trust in other people than him. "Did you even tag him with the Hiratian seal?" Tobirama asked, hoping for a yes. "No," Naruto replied, and Tobirama hanged his head. "He battled you extensively throughout his life. He would recognize that seal in a heartbeat, so you just let him go, just like that?" Tobirama asked. Yes, you are too trusting. Let's hope it doesn't come back and bite you in the ass, Tobirama warned and sat down to eat as well. If my ass hurts you will be the first to know, Naruto replied, making Tobirama look dangerously at him. Few days later, all ready to go? Tsunade asked, looking at both Naruto and Hinata, her chosen bodyguards, to the 5 Kage summit that would take place in the Land of Iron in a few hours. Tobirama was also tagging along, but for others' reasons, primarily one Mizukage. Leave the cloak, Naruto, Tsunade warned. I don't want the others Kages thinking you are the new ringleader for the Akatsuki, she said. In a way, I am the new leader, Naruto replied. Do you want to be jumped by the other Kages? Tsunade asked in disbelief. It might be fun fighting 3 or 4 Kages at once, Naruto pondered while Tsunade just looked at him blankly. I never had the chance to go all out. It's like my eyes are itching for relief, Naruto explained, and Tsunade sighed dramatically. Anyways, are you both ready? Naruto asked, placing a hand on her shoulder and the other on Hinata. We are going now. We will see you in a few hours, Naruto said to the rest of the compound as he teleported away, towards Land of Iron with both Tsunade and Hinata. They arrived at their destination in the blink of an eye. It was snowing in the Land of Iron as they walked towards the gates leading inside the small castle where the meeting was to be held. They approached the big, wooden double doors and were greeted by samurais. Welcome, Lady Hokage, Mifune said, bowing in respect. Good to see you as well, General Mifune, Tsunade replied back, bowing as well to the leader of the samurai. Lord Tobirama. It seems the news were true. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mifune said, and Tobirama nodded in reply. Lady Hinata, it's good to see as well, Mifune said, and Hinata nodded. Mifune turned towards the last element, a particular blonde we all know and love. Naruto, Mifune said with a chuckle. Old man Naruto smirked back. Naruto, Tsunade shouted, grabbing him by the scruff of his hair and forcing him to bow. Show some respect to your betters, it's fine, Lady Tsunade, Mifune replied kindly. We have met almost a year ago during his training trip and you let him call you old man? Tsunade asked in disbelief. I'm not getting any younger, Mifune laughed heartedly. Besides, we both know that he has respect for us, even if doesn't show it in his words, I guess. Come, Mifune smiled. The others Kages have yet to arrive, Mifune said, leading Tsunade inside. Naruto was about to follow when Hinata tripped. Naruto's lighting reflexes came in handy as he gripped her by the arm and stopped her from hitting the ground. Did you seriously trip? Naruto asked in disbelief. How would a shinobi even trip? Much less a shinobi of Hinata's caliber. I just zoned out for a little, Hinata chuckled weakly, blinking her eyes quickly like they were burning. She felt like she was awakened for days. What's wrong? Naruto asked. The last couple days have been weird. I get these random waves of pain to my forehead. Sometimes the pain just lingers around, not that painful, just an annoying drone during the day, Hinata said. Why didn't you say anything? Naruto asked softly. I didn't want you to worry, Hinata mumbled, and Naruto smiled. I want to worry. It's my job to take care of you, Naruto said firmly, placing both hands on her shoulders. Let me see, Naruto said, activating his Rinnegan and poking her forehead with 2 fingers. A soft green glow enveloped his fingers and started sinking into her head, spreading around her forehead seal. What is that? Naruto wondered, feeling that something strange was happening to her body. It can't be. Naruto's eyes widened in disbelief and he jumped backwards from surprise. Hinata opened her eyes when she felt Naruto's hand leaving her forehead. What's wrong, Naruto-kun? Hinata asked, worried by his reaction. Naruto only smiled in reply and approached her. Something amazing is coming to his world, Naruto said, resting his forehead on hers. His Rinnegan staring into her Byakugan. What's coming? Hinata asked with hope. Naruto was happy, so it must be something good, right? As Naruto, Hinata, come inside, Tsunade shouted from the entrance, breaking Naruto's explanation. We'll take later, Naruto said, and Hinata nodded, walking next to him. She was happy that these erratic waves of pain was nothing to worry about. Few hours later, meeting. Now that the Mizukage has arrived, we can finally be in this meeting. I am Mifune, General of the Samurai and Iron Country, and it's my pleasure to host the 5 Kage meeting. Please introduce yourselves, Mifune said, folding his hands and resting his elbows on the table. Mei Terumi, Godame Mizukijime said, placing her dark blue hat on the table. Yandame Raikage said, throwing his yellow hat to the table. Baki, Godame Kazakage Baki answered, placing down his green hat. Anoki, Sandame Tsuchikage Anoki replied, placing down his brown hat. Senja Tsunade, Godame Hokaji Tsunade finished, placing down her hat as well. Good, Mifune said with a smile. Acting as mediator for powerful figures as Kages when there is so much history between their villages wasn't easy. Now, I believe that Tsuchikage should begin since he was the one that called this meeting in the first place, Mifune explained, gesturing to the old Kage. Lord Tsuchikage. When you are ready, Mifune said and leaned backwards as a sign for the Anoki to proceed. Anoki nodded silently and sat somewhat straight. He cleared his throat and simply said one word. Akatsuki, what of it? Mei asked, folding her arms across her chest. As you know, the Akatsuki appeared many years ago, but only in the last 3 they became active. And in only 3 years they have captured nearly all of the bijou, Anoki said and let it hang in the air. Your worries are unwarranted, Anoki grunted. I believe you heard the news regarding the Jounin exams I hosted in Kumo? Asked and Anoki nodded. I believe the Hokage could explain better, said, giving a nod towards the blonde Hokage. If you allow it, I'll call Naruto to explain since he was the one on the battlefield, Tsunade asked towards the Kages and Mifune, who all nodded in agreement. Naruto, Tsunade called and Naruto jumped from the overwatch and stood behind Tsunade. Tsunade gave a small nod and Naruto stepped forward slightly. The Akatsuki is finished. During the Jounin exams they launched a full-scale invasion on Kumo. Of the original 10 members, only 7 were active at the time. Deidara and Sasori attacked the Leaf and nearly captured the Nanabai but were defeated in the end. The remaining 5 members, Tobi, also known as Uchiha Fugaku, Uchiha Clan Head, Kisame, Konan, Zetsu and Pain, also known as Nagato, attacked Kumo. I summoned the 10 dragons of the Leaf and swept the floor with them. By the end of the battle only Konan and Zetsu were left alive. I allowed Konan to live and return to the rain to rule it in peace. We didn't need another Hanzo popping out in that poor village. Zetsu's whereabouts are currently unknown. Naruto explained. Yes, the 10 dragons of the Leaf. Konoha sure came out good because of that invasion. Having a few legends resurrected is always nice, Anoki spat, making the Hokage slightly tense. Having an influx of 5th-rank shinobi to any village was a large boost in power, and wars had been started for less than that. Although, Tobirama seems to be getting a little handsy with the Mizukage, Anoki stated. Mei replied. That was uncalled for, Lord Tsuchikage, Mifune warned while Anoki just grunted in reply. If you called this meeting just for this, then you are wasting my time, sighed. The Akatsuki is defeated, true. But, what happened to the bijou they caught? Anoki asked, making everyone's eyes widen in sudden enlightenment. So that is the reason of this meeting, Naruto said with a smile. You want to know the fate of the bijou? I already know the fate of the bijou, boy, Anoki sneered. I heard the most interesting news about some new pets Konoha had acquired in the last few days, Anoki said, and Kurama snarled inside Naruto's mind at the word pet. It seems we have been lied to, Kage, Anoki said, addressing Mei, and Baki. It seems Konoha is in possession of 8 bijou. The last one is the Hachibi, still in possession of Kumo, Anoki said, and only Baki seemed surprised at the news. Without their single bijou, the Hachibi, Suna had been left alone of the Akatsuki troubles. Where are you going with this, Anoki? Mei asked, narrowing her eyes at the aged Kage. It's very simple, my dear. Anoki gave a crooked smile. I want my bijou back, Anoki said in a firm voice. Naruto sighed and looked back towards Tsunade, who seemed to be pondering the options. A wrong answer, and this was definitely war. Gives us a few moments, Tsunade said, beckoning Naruto to stand close to her. Anoki grunted in acknowledgement and everyone waited a few moments for the whispers between Naruto and Tsunade to end. So, have you come to an answer? Anoki asked, getting impatient. This meeting was already 1 hour in. Tsunade nodded and Naruto stepped forward. The answer is no, Naruto said, and Inoki jumped from his seat. What? He snarled. Both the Gobi and the Yanbi belong to IWA. I demand them to be returned to us, Inoki said with a harsh tone. The bijou are not yours, old man, Naruto said, making the room gasp. They are mine, and mine only. Tsunade Inoki started with a dangerous tone. Does this boy speak for you and the leaf? He asked. Yes, Tsunade replied with a little hesitation. I see, Inoki replied, sitting back down and turning towards Naruto. You are walking a dangerous path, boy. Inoki said, and Naruto just laughed in reply, making everyone look at him in confusion. It seems old age has gotten to you, Naruto said, and Inoki merely sneered in reply. The bijou belong to me, not the leaf. Don't get other ideas in your head. And when the time comes, despite my respect for Rei and Kumo, I will come for the Hachibi. And in the meantime, if you want a war, then I will give you one, Naruto said in a cold tone. I don't need a village to support me, I don't need a village to stand behind me. I will personally walk through the front gates of IWA with 8 bijou behind me, and lay waste to your village, Naruto said coldly. Tsunade was sitting a bit uncomfortable in her seat. Naruto was coming a bit strong. The other Kages just watched the events unfold and witnessed the start of the 4th Great Shinobi War. Such arrogance. You are just like him, Inoki sneered. At least your father had some decency. I'm not my father, Naruto replied. No, you are not. At least we agree on that, Inoki grunted. Is that your final answer? Inoki asked, and Naruto nodded. Let the world know who was responsible for this, Inoki said with a tone of finality, making everyone wonder what the old Kage was up to. The Tsuchikage slowly moved out of his seat, hands behind his back, as he calmly strolled to the center of the room. Then, to everyone's surprise, he began to levitate above the ground, standing a few feet from ground level. The old Kage closed his eyes and stood there, floating and seemingly meditating in the middle of the room. Have you gone insane in your old age, Inoki? Aside. IWA shall never bow to Konoha or its allies, Inoki roared, extending both arms forward, a jutsu leaving his lips with a harsh tone. Jintan Genkai Hakuri no Jutsu, dust release detachment of the primitive world, as the Tsuchikage called his technique, a large transparent cube appeared with a pure white sphere located inside. The sphere suddenly expanded into a cone-shaped structure. Inoki pointed his technique towards Tsunade, Naruto, Mei, and A. The technique glowed white and enveloped the 3 Kages alongside Naruto. Then suddenly imploded, destroying everything inside and around. When the dust cleared, all 3 Kages and Naruto were gone, along with the table and a chunk of the wall. At least, that was what the Tsuchikage intended to do, but he never counted on Naruto being unpredictable as he was. The moment that Tsuchikage extended his arms for his jutsu, Naruto activated his Sharingan. His eyes started swirling as Inoki's jutsu formed into the white sphere. Then, to Naruto's surprise, his own arms moved almost unconsciously. He could see it. He understood how it worked. Time seemed to slow down as he watched Inoki pouring earth chakra and forming the outer, translucent shell of his jutsu. Then, each arm added the next components. His left arm added a small flame of fire chakra, and his right arm added a burst of wind chakra. The wind chakra enveloped the fire chakra, creating a small vortex of fire inside the sphere. As both elements empowered each other, the sphere started glowing almost a pure white. What Naruto didn't know was that he was performing the exactly same steps as he watched Inoki. Then, a mere fraction before it all began, time seemed to resume. Jinten, both Naruto and Inoki said simultaneously. Gunkai Hakori no Jutsu, both techniques clashed in the middle of the room. The point of impact glowed white, covering the room in a blinding light. Where Inoki had the experience and skill with his technique, Naruto had his powerful chakra and vast reserves to compensate for that. The room rumbled from the power of both techniques. From the point of impact, a small sphere started forming and growing in size, destroying the ground and quickly increasing in size. The Kages and their bodyguards seemed to snap from their shock and all jumped away to safety. Suddenly, just like it began, the jutsu imploded and the piercing light died down. Everyone was staring at Naruto and Inoki. Even they seemed to be in shock, Inoki for seeing Naruto copy his jutsu, and Naruto himself for being able to copy said jutsu. Inoki snarled, being the first to break from the shock. He bent down and jumped towards the levitating Inoki, tackling the old man to the floor. Naruto was shaken from his shock, noticing the entire room about to explode in war. He took a deep breath and sent his golden chains to immobilize everyone in the room, most already running through hand seals. Everyone calm the fuck down, Naruto roared, releasing a wave of chakra that made the room shake slightly. Naruto released his chains, leaving them only around Inoki and his bodyguards, Kuratsuchi and Akatsuchi. Good, Naruto said in his normal voice. He rose a single hand and tried the jutsu once again. He was once again shocked to see a small white spark at the tip of his fingers, forming the perfect sphere he had used. Inoki Mifune said harshly, forgetting all niceties. What is the meaning of this? You dare attack foreign Kages on neutral ground? He asked, his voice taking a deeper tone. It would seem that Iwagakure will go to war over the Bijou, and not against Konoha alone, Tsunade explained, looking at the chained Kage on the floor. Yes, drawled. It would seem our alliance agreement got public. What's your take on this, Kazuka-jesima? Mei asked towards Baki. You are, after all, allied with Iwagakure, are you not? Mei asked sweetly, making Baki take a step back and gulp in fear. I assure you, Baki tried to reason. I knew nothing of his plans for this meeting. Prove it, Naruto challenged, extending his arm for Baki to take. The Kazekage, however, didn't even hesitate and placed his hand on Naruto's. Ninjendo, human path, Naruto thought, taking particular care to keep his eyes closed. He scanned through his memories and found nothing. He's clear, Naruto said, and Baki released a breath of relief he didn't know he was holding. What are we going to do with you, Inoki? Tsunade sighed, leaning back on what remained of the wooden desk they had been sitting on. Lord Mifune, a single samurai, burst into the room, urgency in his voice. Iwagakure is marching towards us, the samurai explained, and everyone looked back to Inoki, who had a crooked smile. How many? Mifune asked quickly. A full battalion of approximately 1,000 men crossed our borders and are taking position around the castle's main entrance as we speak, the samurai explained. We have closed the gates and barricaded the entrance. It would seem Inoki wasn't as insane as we thought, Naruto said. This meeting wasn't about the Akatsuki or the Bijou. They were just an excuse for him to try and get rid of the Konoha-Kirikumo alliance. If no one survived, there would be no reports of what happened here, and a small lie would be sufficient, Naruto explained. You pretty sharp, Inoki commended the boy. But, not even all of you can stand against 1,000 shinobi, all around Jounin level, Inoki said, pleased with the strength of his forces. Do not worry, this castle was created to withstand heavy siege, Mifune explained. That won't work against IWA shinobi, Tsunade sighed. They are highly skilled in earth ninjutsu and will bring down these walls in minutes. Then I suggest we man the walls, Mifune offered, and everyone nodded. And him? I asked, nodding towards Inoki and his bodyguards. I'll bring him along. So he can see what his decisions brought, Naruto said, and everyone left the room. With Iwa's battalion, get ready, men, Kitsuchi shouted to the shinobi standing behind him. Are you sure about this? Ren asked with doubt. We are going to attack the Kages, she muttered. Are you loyal to IWA or that Naruto fellow? Taiseki asked with a sneer, and Ren stayed silent. Just stay back, Taiseki sighed. You are not here to be a frontliner. You are here to sense enemy movement, okay, Ren said slowly and sat down, crossing her legs and placing her hands in the ram seal. Begin, Kitsuchi shouted. Doton Doryuden, Earth Dragon Bullet, with Kages this won't hold much, Mei said, frowning at the defenses they had placed. While the gates were metal, their barricade was nothing but a few chunks of wood pressed against the gate. Take cover, one of the samurai on the wall shouted as thousands of rocks and hardened mud rained upon the castle. Everyone inside hugged the walls for cover as the attack smashed against the walls. At first it did nothing, but over time, the continuous impacts of small rock was beginning to crack the walls. Should we answer back? Baki asked, siding with the other Kages. What Inoki had done was foolish, and the Suna wouldn't stand against 3 allied villages. Get back, Hinata shouted, beckoning everyone to stay away from walls. Naruto felt the large chakra spike from the invading forces. The whole castle started rumbling as the walls started simply sinking on the ground, inch by inch. The vast and thick wall that separated the inner castle from the outside was simply sinking into the earth, as if being swallowed by a swamp. "Stay here," Naruto said, walking forward. "What are you going to do?" Tsunade asked quickly. "What I do best," Naruto replied and jumped over the sinking walls. With Iwa's battalion enemy incoming, Rin shouted to the battalion, forcing everyone to halt their jutsu. The moving earth core technique required a lot of chakra and made the user stationary, and thus vulnerable to an attack. "Men, forward!" Kitsuchi bellowed and the shinobi charged forward, running towards the enemy. "No. Run away," Rin shouted, but they never heard her. "It's Naruto," she whispered, her voice falling on deaf ears. "Kunai Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Kunai Shadow Clone," Naruto said, throwing a single kunai into the air. The kunai quickly multiplied into hundreds and started raining down against the IWA army. "Doton Doryohiki, Earth Wall," the forward shinobi shouted, raising a wall in front of their army and blocking every single kunai. "The bastard thinks we didn't learn anything from the yellow flashback," then one shinobi sneered. What they didn't expect in a million years was for Naruto to simply appear through the wall like a ghost, speeding towards them at fast speeds. He blinked and Naruto was suddenly upon him, delivering a lightning-empowered punch against his gut. His last image was a pair of glowing red eyes with black markings. Suetun Baku Suishua, great exploding water wave. Naruto pumped his lungs with chakra and unleashed a gigantic wave over the army. They raised defensive walls, but the water was like a tsunami. Not even the earth nature power over the water nature seemed to stop it. Raiton Rarayuden, lightning dragon, a blue dragon with piercing yellow eyes, sparkled out of Naruto's hands and dove into the wave. Naruto watched as the electrified tsunami washed down and dealt with the frontliners. Kitsuchi snarled, seeing most of the army defeated in the blink of an eye just by a water jutsu. "Doton Sando no Jutsu, mountain jutsu," he roared, slamming both hands on the ground. Naruto stopped walking when he felt the earth rumble beneath him. Around him, two enormous rock formations rose from the ground. They started moving towards one another, Naruto still caught in the middle. "Let's try this," Naruto wondered, raising his hands forward. Jinton Genkai Hakuri no Jutsu, detachment of the primitive world, the same white sphere he had used before appeared in his hands. The sphere expanded and completely leveled the ground around him, destroying the towering slabs of earth. "Not possible," Kitsuchi muttered, seeing his strongest attack neutralized with the Tsuchikige's dust style. "Bastard," he snarled, running towards Naruto. Doton Kengan no Jutsu, Stone Fist. Kitsuchi charged forward, sending his stone-covered fist crashing against the blonde. Naruto simply raised a hand and blocked the strike with an open palm, much to Kitsuchi's shock. "Chidori," Naruto said, unleashing lightning chakra from the same hand he used to defend. The lightning completely destroyed the rock shell and electrocuted Kitsuchi, who fell to his knees, twitching all over. "Bastard," Kitsuchi said, before blacking out. Naruto stepped over Kitsuchi and continued with his onslaught until he reached the last person on the army. "Run," Naruto said, but she stayed silent. She looked up but only caught a glimpse of yellow hair before she saw nothing more. It was done. With Kagezanoki smiled when he heard his army yell and charge forward. He could feel the ground trembling, this caused by his army running forward. His grin quickly fell out of his face when the scream of charge were replaced with screams of fright. Anoki's eyes widened when he saw his own technique shine in the distance. Then silence. His heart was hammering in his chest as Anoki waited for a sound, anything. The silence was leaving a sinking feeling in his gut. Then he saw it, a glimpse of red hair, approaching the castle through the mist of the dust. Naruto walked inside, his face covered with dirt and his hair stained red. He had so much blood on him that his hair seemed red instead of yellow. "It's done," Naruto simply said. "What have you done?" Anoki yelled in despair, fighting against the restraints. "What was necessary?" Naruto replied with a heavy heart. "This is will happen to your village if you continue to pursue your goals. Forget the bijou. They aren't meant to be used as weapons, and as long as I live, they will never be again," Naruto explained, and Inoki dropped his head. Naruto could see tears running down the man's cheeks. He had just brought 1,000 of his men to die. Clap clap clap. Everyone looked towards the origin of the clapping sound. Their eyes widened in shock, fear and disbelief when they saw Uchiha Madara sitting on one of the rocks, slowly clapping. Looks like Zetsu wasn't lying about you, Naruto. You do dance rather well, Madara said with amusement. Madara Tsunade said with astonishment. He's an Edo Tensei, Naruto said, looking at the fracture marks all over his skin. Now Madara began, rising from the stone. That is no way to greet family. How about giving your old man a hug? He asked with amusement. Everyone just stood there gaping like a fish. Here stood Uchiha fucking Madara, the man that was supposed to dead, cracking a liner. Naruto stammered, scratching his head in confusion. He didn't know how to handle this. Why are you here, Madara? Tsunade snarled. Easy, Senju, Madara replied calmly. I came to offer all of you a choice. Either give me the bijou, Madara said, looking pointedly at Naruto. Or you will have war, Madara warned, his tone getting lower. The bijou are mine, Naruto replied. And not even you will get them. You are the other Rinnegan, aren't you? You were the one that summoned the Geto Mazo, Naruto stated. His initial suspicions had been confirmed. Guilty as charged, Madara said, raising his arms in defeat. But I do have to thank you, Madara said, getting a confused look from Naruto. You gave me my brother back, Madara smirked. Told you, Tobirama grunted. And as a gift in return, I came here to offer all of a choice. You either deliver me the bijou peacefully or I will give you a war. Iwagakure today was only a taste. It's amazing what the power of suggestion can do, isn't it, Anoki? Madara asked with amusement. A suggestion here, a suggestion there, couple it with your already existent hate towards the leaf and here you go, bringing an army to kill your enemies, Madara said, making everyone stare at him in shock. Anoki was just looking blankly at the ground. Don't feel so bad, Madara appeased. Naruto was rather mild with them. They are all knocked out, you know? They are all alive, Madara explained, and Anoki's head snapped up and looked towards Naruto. Naruto noticed Anoki looking at him with pleading eyes, as if asking to confirm what Madara said. It's true. They are only knocked out. The blood on me was only a simple genjutsu, Naruto confirmed, and Anoki could sigh in relief. Anyway, he may be mild, but I'm not, Madara smirked and nodded towards the outside of the castle. The night sky was immediately lit ablaze. "No!" Naruto yelled, flashing towards the battlefield. He saw a clone of Madara do a single hand seal and spew an ocean of fire against the unconscious shinobi lying on the ground. Suetun Baku Suishua, great exploding water wave, Naruto did the same jutsu yet again. This time twice as more powerful as before. The gigantic wave swallowed Madara's jutsu, immediately putting out the fire all over and saving the IWA shinobi from being burned up. He watched the clone of Madara smirk and dispel in smoke. Naruto flashed back to the Kages and every single one was on the ground in pain, their bodyguards completely out. What happened? Naruto thought. He had only been gone for a minute at the most. Hinata? Naruto wondered, looking around but didn't spot her. Where's Hinata? Naruto asked, rushing to Tsunade's side. She looked up and groggily extended her arm. Naruto opened his hands and watched as Tsunade dropped something on it. Naruto looked at the item and it was Hinata's wedding ring. I'm sorry, and Naruto. We tried, Tsunade coughed. No, Naruto thought, backing away. Madara couldn't have taken her. Hinata Aya. Chapter 63, Breaking Your Limits. Previously Hinata? Naruto wondered, looking around but didn't spot her. Where's Hinata? Naruto asked, rushing to Tsunade's side. She looked up and groggily extended her arm. Naruto opened his hands and watched as Tsunade dropped something on it. Naruto looked at the item and it was Hinata's wedding ring. I'm sorry, and Naruto. We tried, Tsunade coughed. No, Naruto thought, backing away. Madara couldn't have taken her. Hinata. A few days later, Konoha, the Senju compound, was in a somber mood. And Naruto was even worse. His Uchiha side was coming out and he was moping around in the corners and mostly snapping at anyone around. Everyone was in the living room waiting for Jiraiya. Well, everyone was waiting. Naruto was just pacing around in the middle of the room, hands behind his back and a scowl on his face. "Where the hell is he?" Naruto asked loudly, waving his arms for good measure, but no one replied to him. They knew he would snap at anyone who said anything, regardless of the answer. His waiting was cut short when the door opened and Jiraiya strolled inside with a disappointed look. Naruto rushed towards the man and quickly asked, "Where is she?" Jiraiya looked at him sadly. Naruto was looking at him with eyes filled with hope, and it broke his heart to answer. "I'm sorry, Naruto," Jiraiya said, dropping his eyes. "I couldn't find her." "You couldn't," Naruto whispered. The words from Jiraiya finally settled in and he felt his stomach drop. All this waiting he had done, waiting for Jiraiya to return with her whereabouts, all this time got wasted. "What do you mean you couldn't find her?" Naruto asked, his voice just above a whisper. His head snapped upwards with a furious gaze. "You have a spy network that stretches halfway through the fucking globe and you can't find one woman," Naruto snarled, gripping Jiraiya by his clothes and bringing him the man to his eye level. Ninja Naruto was about to use his human path and scan through Jiraiya's memories when he felt a hand land of his shoulders. He turned his head ever so slightly, his hair parting away and revealing but a fraction of his silver eyes to the man behind him. "That is enough," Minato said sternly, but Naruto only chuckled. It wasn't a warm chuckle filled with happiness, but a cold and hollow one. Minato himself felt a small shiver crawling up his spine at hearing such sound from his son's voice. The laugh seemed so cold, so cruel, so empty. "Tendo Shinra Tensei," Naruto intoned with a smirk. Minato only had time to stare at his son in shock until he felt an invisible mountain crash against him. He was lifted off the ground and blasted backwards, crashing against the walls, not very far away. Minato left a small indentation as he slid to the floor, dazed. "Naruto!" everyone shouted, can't believing that he had attacked his own father. Naruto's attention snapped back towards Jiraiya, who gulped and simply stared at Naruto with the Rinnegan activated. "You wouldn't lie to me, Jiraiya? Would you?" Naruto asked, his voice turning deadly. Jiraiya had never seen this side of Naruto. He never knew that Naruto could be so vicious. Cruel. Kushina for her part had enough of this and was time to put her foot down. Naruto was about to blast whoever placed a hand on his shoulder when he was pulled and swiftly turned around. A loud slap echoed through the room. Naruto was staring at his mother in no small amount of surprise as he felt his right cheek already swelling and turning red. "Now you listen to me, young man. I may have not been here to raise you, but I will still smack you if you need it," Kushina began harshly. "Your wife was kidnapped because of you. You are childish, stubborn, arrogant, and have too much power for your own good. You think you can solve the world's problems by throwing your power around?" Kushina shouted in a furious tone, poking his chest with a single finger. "Well, you can't. You are not a god, and you certainly do not rule this world. Threatening that Tsuchikage with war, saying you will take the last bijou from Kumo. What is wrong with you? This is not how the world works. If you ask me, Madara did us all a favor and took you down a peg," Kushina said, making everyone's eyes widen. "Ever since you got your little Rinnegan you have been going around with you chin up, praising to be God Almighty. But you are not. And a word of advice," Kushina said, lowering her tone. "If you are not careful, you might one day lose her too. Now go cool off." Kushina finished and pushed him out. Naruto said nothing and simply walked of the compound. "That was a little harsh," Kushina Tsunade said, helping a groaning Minato of the floor. Minato didn't seem to bear any external injuries. The man just seemed to be dazed as he was looking at seemingly nowhere. He needed it. "It's the parents' job to discipline their children," Kushina huffed, hands on her waist as she walked towards her husband. With Naruto strolled around Konoha aimlessly. The village was buzzing with activity, but Naruto didn't seem particularly interested in anything. His mother's words still ringing around in his ears. Was it my fault? Naruto wondered, looking at the sky. It was a clouded night, not a single star visible, not even the moon. Hey Naruto. Naruto turned to the source of the voice and found himself in front of the ramen stand. Ramen for dinner? Tochi asked hopefully. Not hungry. Thanks anyway, old man. Naruto replied solemnly and moved on. Tochi was surprised by Naruto refusing ramen, but the look on his face said all that he needed. Maybe if I give him the bijou. Don't you dare, Kurama snarled from his mind, making Naruto flinch. Is that it? You would give us to him just for her? Kurama asked sharply, his tails waving. He kinda understood what Naruto was going through. He, as well, had grown fond of the girl. She's my love. My wife. My queen, Naruto said sadly, walking like a ghost through the crowded streets. I would do anything for her, even sacrificing a friend? Kurama asked softly. Naruto said nothing and continued walking, hands deep in his pockets and his head down, the hair clouding his vision of everything but the ground. What am I supposed to do? I have all this power. I can create and destroy moons, but I can't even find one woman. Some god I am. Naruto thought bitterly, kicking a stray piece of rock away. She can be anywhere in the world. She can be hurt, dying, and here I am, walking around in the village. Naruto walked a little more and soon found himself on top of the Hokage mountain, overlooking the village. He kinda resented the village. They were all happy and cheery. Rain? Naruto muttered, feeling a drop of water land on his face and slide down his cheek. He looked up as rain started pouring from the sky and watched as the people ran around, trying to escape the rain. Flashback, you were always with me since the very beginning. Naruto began. You were the first person to show me kindness and love. You were my first friend, my girlfriend, and now my greatest love. You were there when I was feeling alone and lost, you were there when I was called a monster, and you were there when I was thrown from stores and feeling lonely. There is nothing I wouldn't do for you, so, Hinata, will you marry me? Naruto asked as he displayed his ring for her to see. You are such a knucklehead, Hinata replied lovingly and making Naruto hesitantly raise his head to look at her. Of course I do, Hinata lovingly replied, and Naruto immediately got a smile that threatened to split his face. He slowly took the ring from his box and tried to place it on her finger. End flashback. Naruto let out a scream of pure anguish. He dropped to his knees, his voice being carried in the wind. The few who heard the scream felt a shiver crawl up their spines, in both fear and sorrow. Naruto picked a few rocks and crushed them with his hands. Madara, he snarled, his eyes glowing so much that a few rocks around him started levitating. When I get my hands on you, not even the Shinigami will save you, Naruto growled with conviction. A thunder lighting the sky as the words left his mouth. Darkness. When everything that you know and love is taken away from you so harshly. All you can think about is anger, hatred, and even revenge. And no one can save you. Kurama muttered and Naruto gave a hollow chuckle. It was one of father's favorite sayings, Kurama informed him. I'm not going dark, Naruto said, swallowing hard. His throat dry from the previous shout. I'm just so angry. I can feel it bubbling inside of me, just waiting to be unleashed. I just want to lash out and destroy everything around me, Naruto explained and sat down on the mountain, the rain pouring down, but he didn't seem to mind. The rain reminded him of her. Naruto sighed and watched his breath leaving his mouth. Temperature started dropping as frost left his mouth, like a cloud of smoke. He inwardly felt a chill run up his spine as a presence manifested itself behind him. It was different from chakra, it felt like pure, raw, unaltered spiritual energy. Death, Naruto whispered, still looking at the sky. Have you come for me? He asked softly. You have an inflated sense of your importance. To a thing like me, a thing like you, well. Think how you'd feel if a bacterium sat at your table and started to get snarky. The Shinigami replied with his raspy voice. This is one little planet. On a tiny solar system. In a galaxy that is barely out of its diapers. I'm old, Naruto. Very old. So I invite you to contemplate how insignificant I find you, the Shinigami finished, and Naruto turned his head slowly, getting a first glimpse of his form. The Shinigami was dressed in a dark business suit, hiding beneath his skinny form. He carried a steel-tipped cane in his right hand. His face was that of an old man with wrinkled skin and pitch black, slicked-back hair. Not what I expected, Naruto answered, gazing at his form. Once more you are clouded by hubris. Even your academy students can change their shape, and yet you find me, an omnipotent being, to be unable to. The Shinigami replied neutrally, crossing his hands above his cane. I suppose, Naruto sighed, standing up and turning towards the Shinigami. What are you doing here? Naruto asked cautiously. After all, he was standing in front of the death god itself. You called and I found myself compelled to honor our agreement, the Shinigami replied, walking forward slowly until he stood but a foot from Naruto. He ran a single finger over Naruto's cheekbone. Those eyes of yours, they intrigue me to no end. So fragile and with such potential, the power of creation is not something I can claim of possessing. But you, a mortal even, to wield such ability. The Shinigami trailed off, backing off. Since you are here, I don't suppose you could locate Hinata for me? Naruto asked hopefully. There are rules in place. I cannot directly interfere in the mortal world, the Shinigami answered neutrally. You helped my dad seal Kurama in me, Naruto replied with a deadpan voice. That was different. I was summoned and received his soul as payment, the Shinigami answered truthfully. And what payment do you request for this favor? Naruto asked harshly, spatting the last word. Mind your tone, human, the Shinigami bellowed sternly. I'm afraid I can't locate your precious wife. I can only feel souls without vessels. The girl you refer still draws breath that makes me feel so much better, Naruto answered sarcastically. Some god you are, Naruto said, shaking his head. You seem to have a wrong understanding how things work. My sister, Izanagi, creates. My other sister, Izanami, destroys, and I keep the balance. Neither of us is more powerful than the other and none is omnipotent. It's as simple as that, Death explained and walked forward towards Naruto, their noses nearly touching. You think you are a god? Death asked, his pupils expanding. Please, I've seen my sisters and you, sir, are no god. I could kill you right here. It would be so easy. Like snapping a twig, you are welcome to try. I have my hubris after all, Naruto replied, never looking away from Death's eyes. Foolish boy. You can't kill Death, Death replied, shaking his head in disbelief. Foolish mortals. You are weak. Frail. Pathetic. You fear yourselves and what you will become. Your bones will turn to glass. Your body to dust. Your hopes to ash. Stumble in the dark and grasp whatever light you can. It does not matter. Because in the end, only I will remain, perhaps, Naruto replied, making Death narrow his eyes. But I am very adept in the sealing arts, Naruto warned. You are the first mortal to ever say that to me. Most just cry or cower, some try to run, others just accept it, but no one has ever tried to defy me. You intrigue me, Senju, Naruto, Death said and turned away, walking off from Naruto. He suddenly stopped and looked backwards. Call me again for pointless matters and I will kill you, Naruto began with a chuckle. I do believe this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Death said nothing and simply disappeared from view. Naruto just didn't want to think about what happened right now and simply sat back down. Seconds turned into minutes, minutes into hours. Mom was right, Naruto sighed, looking at the sky. The rain had ceased somewhere along the night and the sun was just peeking in the horizon. I became the very thing I once told Sasuke not to be, Naruto laughed weakly. Naruto got up and started walking back to the Senju compound. He had a few things to fix. Senju compound. Most of the shinobi living in the Senju compound were in the kitchen, eating breakfast. They heard the door creak open and watched as Naruto walked inside. Hey, Naruto greeted weakly and walked to the table. No one said anything as Naruto sat down and began eating as well. Sorry, Naruto suddenly said, making everyone stop their actions. I'm sorry the way I acted in the last few days, Naruto muttered in Kushin and nodded, placing a hand on his shoulders. Dad, Abo, don't worry about it, Minato waved him off. I would be a lousy father if I didn't forgive my son for lashing out when he was hurt, Minato grinned and Naruto nodded, his eyes watering. How did he get her? Naruto suddenly asked. It occurred Naruto that he never asked Tsunade about how Madara had taken her. He had only been away for a few seconds, a minute at the latest. He is fast, Naruto. Very fast, Tsunade answered sorrowfully. What kind of master couldn't protect her apprentice? She looked at Naruto and waited for him to blow up again, but he didn't. How fast? Naruto asked after a few moments. Tsunade smiled. He was beginning to reason instead of being driven by emotion. I guess we know from where Minato inherited his speed. Madara didn't seem to be at his level, but Tsunade trailed off. Naruto understood what she meant. He knocked us around in the blink of an eye. Neither of us expected that. Zetsu came and grabbed both of them, Tsunade explained. What about Hinata? Naruto asked, looking at his plate and clenching his fists to contain the anger he felt at Madara. We will find her, Naruto Kushina said softly. Then we will kick his ass, she barked, punching the air. Aigu's Naruto's head snapped to the side. He sensed something, a presence approaching the compound. Before anyone could ask what happened, Naruto's eyes lit up as he jumped from his seat and ran to the door, nearly dragging the wooden stool with him. He was at the door in the blink of an eye and pulled it open, smashing the handle into the wall. Hinata, Naruto muttered, looking at the person standing on the other side. He hoped it wasn't a mirage he was seeing. At the door stood a woman who looked exactly like her. Hinata-can, he whispered, and she nodded, running to him and hugging him fiercely, as if he'd slip away at any instant. Hinata sobbed in his arms as he held her, dropping to the floor. The rest of the compound went after Naruto and found him and Hinata, cradling together on the floor. Hinata, she's back, Kushina shouted in astonishment and surprise. Naruto finally let go of her and stepped back a little. He raised her face and gently cleaned her tears. Hinata-can, he said softly, running his thumb over her cheek. Both Naruto and Hinata got up. Everyone walked inside and sat around the kitchen table. Everyone was shocked to see that Hinata had returned, on her own. How did she manage to escape? I know you have questions, Hinata said, breaking the awkward silence in the room. She snuggled deeper into Naruto's arms, who tightened his hold ever so slightly. It was amazing how her presence calmed him down, all his anger, hatred gone. How can we be sure it's really you and not some Zetsu clone? Tobirama asked, crossing his arms and leaning back in his chair. He wouldn't put it past Madara to try and scheme something. I already touched her soul. Zetsu don't have any, Naruto replied, stopping Tobirama's incoming rant. How did you escape? Hashirama asked, narrowing his eyes. Madara isn't exactly stupid to the point of letting prisoners escape. I didn't escape, Hinata chuckled softly. He let me go, Hinata said, making several jaws hit the ground. He let you go? Just like that? Tobirama asked in disbelief, and Hinata nodded in disbelief as well. She still could barely believe that she was simply released. According to him, my kidnapping had two purposes. The first was to get his Rinnegan back, Hinata said, and Naruto's eyes widened. He was about to leave, but Hinata held him in place. It's already gone, Naruto-kun. He read my mind with his Rinnegan and sent a Zetsu clone of me to the hospital. He already has the Rinnegan, Hinata said, looking the floor. I'm sorry. I can resist the Sharingan Genjutsu, but the Rinnegan. Don't worry, Hinata-kun. I'm glad you're safe. Nothing else matters, Naruto said gently. What was the other reason? Hashirama asked, rubbing his chin. He said it was to make Naruto-kun ready, Hinata explained, making everyone frown in confusion. Ready? Ready for what? Naruto asked, and Hinata simply shrugged her shoulders. To be honest, she was just happy to be back and not particularly interested in his reasons for now. Why don't you explain from the beginning? Tsunade asked, and Hinata nodded, taking a deep breath and beginning her tale. Flashback, everything was fuzzy. Hinata was feeling fuzzy, the last remnants of her dreams being chased away by the growing pain on the back of her neck. She turned her head slowly, groaning at the stiffness she felt in the area. She tried bringing her right hand to massage her neck but found she couldn't. What happened? Hinata wondered in thought. She still had eyes closed, not truly wanting face the brightness should she open them. That was until the memories of the previous night came flooding in. Her eyes snapped open only to be closed immediately after due to the brightness. She took a calming breath and slowly opened her eyes, letting them adjust to the ambient light of the room. The first thing she noted was that her hands were bound behind her back, her legs bound in similar fashion. She tried using her chakra scalpel to cut down the ropes but felt high resistance in molding chakra. She carefully examined her body, searching for any trace of a chakra seal. Something was blocking her ability to mold chakra, and usually it was a chakra-suppressing seal stuck somewhere in contact with her skin. Alas, her searches were for nothing. She couldn't activate her Byakugan, and being bound restrained her movements a lot. She decided to observe the room where she was stuck. The room itself was very plain. Brown walls with wooden floor, a door, and a single light bulb stranded in the ceiling. Where am I? She wondered. She remembered taking a heavy blow to the back of her head, courtesy of Madara, but after that it was blank. She didn't even remember the dream she had, mere moments ago. Hinata turned towards the door. She could hear voices coming from the other side. She focused and tried to pick up any word. She recognized the voices, they belonged to Azuna and Madara, but they were talking too quietly for her to hear properly. He. One, she recognized Madara's voice. Power. Person, now that voice belonged to Azuna. Hinata. Straight Hinata was surprised to hear her name being uttered in their conversation. She was trying to make sense, but she only got a few words here and there. Not nearly enough to complete the sentences and understand their conversation. Did. Why? Izuna asked. Because. Change. Villain. Hinata heard Madara reply, and then it was over. Instead of words, she now heard the sound of footsteps getting closer and closer. The door opened and the Uchiha brothers stepped inside. Neither said a word as they approached Hinata. Hinata watched them approach, her heart speeding up in response. What do you want with me? Hinata asked, her voice calm and neutral, not betraying the nervousness she felt inside. Outside she was as calm as possible, but inside there was a maelstrom of thoughts running through her mind. Relax, girl, Madara replied, sitting in front of her with his legs crossed together. As to why you are here. 3 reasons, Madara said, raising 3 fingers. First is information, obviously. I'm about to wage war and any information on the enemy is essential after all. The second reason is to make Naruto ready, Madara said, and Hinata just stared blankly at him. And 3, if anyone knows where my Rinnegan is, it will be you, Madara said with a small chuckle. Hinata's eyes widened a fraction of an inch as she tried to show no emotion at his words. I will tell you nothing, Hinata hissed coldly. You don't have to. Madara smirked and activated his Rinnegan. He placed a single hand on Hinata's head and grabbed her by the ear to stop her from struggling. Stop, she shouted, squirming under his touch to try and break free. Ninjendo, human path, it was too late. Hinata's eyes dazed as if she entered some type of trance. Madara quickly shuffled through her memories until he found what he was looking for. His Rinnegan was at Konoha Hospital, in Hinata's private laboratory where she had been running a few tests on the eyes. Madara removed his hand and stepped back as Hinata regained her focus. Zetsu, Madara called, and a single white Zetsu appeared from the ground. You know what to do, Madara said, and the clone nodded silently. The Zetsu clone touched Hinata and immediately took her form. Go get my eyes, Madara ordered, and the clone sunk into the ground, heading towards Konoha at full speed. Naruto-kun will defeat you, even if have your eyes back, Hinata replied defiantly. Girl. Who says I want to defeat him? Madara chuckled darkly, getting a confusion face from Hinata. Don't for a moment assume to know my plans. What now? Hinata asked, her heart hammering on her chest. Were they going to kill her now that they had the information they needed? Now we wait, Madara said and walked out, leaving Hinata alone in the room. Wait for what? Hinata said out loud as the light on the ceiling turned off and she was left alone in the dark. Next day she didn't get any sleep that night. Even completely shrouded in the darkness of the room, she couldn't help but let her mind wander and work overtime on how to escape. Although it put things into perspective, how terribly weak any shinobi was without their chakra to fuel their powers. Naruto and other strong shinobi like Rock Lee and Madogai might be able to break their binds with raw muscle strength alone. But Hinata's massive strength was solely based on her chakra. Her Byakugan needed chakra. Even her Senbon and Kunais needed chakra since they were stored away in her storage seals. She sighed and leaned back against the wall. There wasn't much to do around here unless wait for something to happen. Suddenly the lights were turned on and Hinata scrunched her eyes at the sudden brightness. The door opened and Izuna strolled inside with a metal tray. Rise and shine! Izuna laughed at his own joke as he walked into the room. Didn't get much sleep? He asked, noticing the dark bags under her eyes. Anyway, enjoy lunch, Izuna said, putting the tray on the floor and sitting in front of her. I don't suppose you would remove the cuffs? Hinata asked with a smile. I know very well the extent of your abilities. Even with your chakra sealed you could take me on in a taijutsu battle, Izuna chuckled. Open up, Izuna said, dipping the spoon into the soup and raising it up in the air. Hinata just stared at him in disbelief and looked at the food with suspicion. It's not poison, Izuna sighed, and Hinata reluctantly nodded, opening her mouth and swallowing the soup. It was pretty good soup in the end. Where am I? Hinata asked between mouthfuls. Amigakure, Izuna replied, and Hinata stopped eating. Rain Village is under Conan's rule, Hinata said suspiciously until a look of shock hit her. Only Conan knew the fate of Nagato's Rinnegan, and that meant she was gone. Madara had found her. So Madara is ruling the Rain Village? Hinata thought, storing that information away. Not anymore, Izuna replied, putting down the bowl. Care to explain why I'm here? Hinata asked, more with curiosity than anything. She couldn't do much without chakra. It was rather pathetic how shinobi relied on it. Leverage? Izuna offered while Hinata just stared at him. How should I know? I don't know what goes through my brother's head, Izuna explained. Of course not, Hinata replied kindly. You are just his sidekick, being forced into remedial service. I mean, a big, strong Uchiha like you being forced to feed a captured Hyuga of all people, Hinata said, a smile hinting in the corner of her lips. That was pretty good, Izuna laughed while Hinata scowled. Trying to turn me on my brother. If it was any other Uchiha it might work, Hinata mumbled something inaudible as she stared at the metallic tray on the ground. She looked carefully and noticed that she could see her reflection. But what caught her eyes was a strange pattern drawn over her forehead. She watched carefully, taking care to not warn Izuna of anything. So Madara drew the seal directly in my skin, Hinata thought as she analyzed it the best she could. She wasn't a seal master herself, but she knew enough to know that the seal was pretty good. Damn headache, Hinata thought bitterly, as if this whole situation wasn't enough, she also needed the damn headache to return. Naruto didn't get to explain her problem at all. All done, Izuna said, picking the tray and getting up. See you later, Izuna said and walked out of the room, closing the door behind and leaving Hinata alone once again. How is she? Madara asked with curiosity. Izuna looked to the side and noticed Madara leaning against the wall. He was back to a human body, having used the original Rinnegan to get rid of his Edo Tensei body. How do you think? Izuna replied sarcastically. Angry? Madara offered, but Izuna shook his head in denial. No. She's come to terms with her kidnapping. She is more interested in your motives, Izuna said, and Madara chuckled. Izuna mumbled something that Madara didn't hear. Come again? I could swear that I saw her eyes twinkling, Izuna said, scratching his chin. Izuna, Madara began calmly. A Byakugan doesn't glow, it doesn't spin, and most certainly doesn't twinkle. Wise as few days later. Good morning, Izuna shouted as he opened the door and stepped into Hinata's holding room. Izuna expected Hinata to be lying down, sleeping, or simply leaning down against the wall. Instead, he found her sitting on the ground, legs crossed and her back perfectly straight. Hinata was sitting in perfect lotus position with her eyes closed. Her breathing was deep and evenly. What are you doing? Izuna asked with confusion. What was the point of mediating when you couldn't access your inner chakra? You there? Izuna asked, kneeling in front of her. He frowned when he didn't receive any answer. Whatever, Izuna muttered and placed the food down. He started walking towards the door and, with one last look back, he closed the door, leaving Hinata alone. Izuna was mumbling profanities beneath his breath when he crossed paths with Madara. "What's wrong?" Madara asked with a raised eyebrow. Izuna was always rather cheerful, unlike most Uchihas. "She didn't greet me good morning," Izuna whined, shedding crocodile tears. Madara just shook his head in disbelief. He wondered how he put up with Izuna back in the day. "Stop, Winam?" Madara was broken from his thoughts when he felt something coming from Hinata's holding room. Was it his imagination? He could swear he felt a chakra spike coming from her room. What was she doing? Madara asked with curiosity. Meditating, Izuna replied with a confused face. "Why do you ask?" Madara, however, didn't reply and just looked towards the door, as if expecting something to happen. Izuna was about to get his brother's attention when both Uchihas felt a massive chakra spike from Hinata's room, enough to make them stumble slightly. The wave of chakra washed through the building, making a few specks of dust fall from the ceiling. "What the hell?" Izuna shouted and looked towards his brother in shock. Madara, however, just stared at the door with a smile on his face. Izuna knew that smile all too well, and it always meant trouble. The Izuna's head snapped towards the site of the sound. He barely had enough time to dodge the incoming projectile. His Sharingan had activated just in time to see the wooden door being blasted cleanly from its hinges and flying a few inches above his head. Finally, Madara thought with a smirk as Hinata's form appeared from the dust cloud. Hinata appeared from the room with a look of fierce determination. Her Byakugan blazing, but what caught his attention was her aura. The chakra seal he had placed on her forehead was gone. Now, she had purple markings extending from her diamond-shaped figure, going down her cheeks and into the jawline. Her body was surrounded by an intense purple aura. For Madara's Sharingan, it was like she was surrounded by purple fire, licking her feet. "Took you long enough," Madara commented. Hinata cracked her neck and flexed her wrist, punching the nearby wall and bringing the whole thing down into nothing more than small rocks. "Izuna, stay out of this," Madara warned as he stepped forward. "Your only way out is through me," Madara said, cracking his knuckles. "Care to try your luck?" Madara asked with a smirk. Hinata didn't say anything and shot forward, her fists glowing with chakra, just waiting to be unleashed. "Come, girl," Madara shouted, jumping forward and meeting Hinata head-on. "Prove you are worthy of fighting me," Madara laughed, lashing out a fast punch that struck Hinata right in the face. Hinata exploded in a shower of water. Water clone, Madara thought, letting the water wash over him until he saw a blur fly past him. His Sharingan allowed him to track Hinata as she flew past him, heading towards the door. He didn't think twice and blurred after her. Hinata noticed that her decoy had already been destroyed and that Madara was running after her, closing in very fast. She bit her lip and looked forward. The exit to the building was near. She charged up her fist and took abruptly turn to the right. Madara's hand missing her hair by an inch. Hinata jumped in the air and brought her fist down against the floor. With a deafening bang, the floor started cracking and the building they stood on started vibrating. "Izuna, get out. The building is coming down," Madara yelled to his brother, who nodded in reply. Madara turned back towards Hinata before blurring through hand seals. Katan, Gokakyu no Jutsu, Great Fireball Technique. Madara spewed a large fireball against Hinata, who punched the floor, breaking the rock and forcing the whole floor to cave in. The large fireball flew over her head and took out the roof. Both Madara and Hinata attached themselves to the falling debris, jumping between them to avoid the falling pieces of rock. For the first time since her capture, Hinata got a glimpse of the Rain Village. Wherever she had been captive was certainly high enough, she could see the whole village from there. She looked up and saw Madara crouch just before leaping towards her. A purple ribcage forming around his body with a single samurai blade pointing straight towards her. Hinata was about to jump away when a wave of pain hit her whole body, centered mostly on her head. She flinched internally and fell to her knees, shaking her head. The previous pain had been annoying, but that had been it. But this last wave of pain was certainly not pleasant at all. She looked up just in time to see Madara thrusting his sword right through her chest. Hinata dissolved into water as Madara removed his sword. Hinata reformed under the falling chunk of rock before jumping downwards and plummeting to the ground. She turned around midair, falling to the ground on her back. Suetun Teppadama, water bullet, she pumped her lungs with water and unleashed a compressed water ball towards Madara. Mizu no Muchi, water whip, Hinata thought, forming a whip-like construct around her wrist and latching it onto the nearby building. Madara smirked and swatted the water attack with his sword. He noticed Hinata was gone. He looked around until he felt a presence to the side. He turned in time to see Hinata flying towards him. She cocked her fist back just before smashing against Madara's Susanoo. She was pleased with her attack when she saw Madara's shield cracking beneath her attack and plummeting to the ground even faster, creating sonic booms as he passed through the air. Madara twirled midair and turned facing the ground. The earth was approaching fast. He flexed his arm and pointed towards the ground. Shinra Tensei, he bellowed, unleashing a pulse of gravity, creating a noticeable indentation on the water on the ground, enough to show the earth a few inches beneath. Madara landed on the water with a loud crash and looked up, seeing Hinata in a free fall. Just before she could hit the water head-on, she liquefied her body and there was a simple plop sound. He watched with a smirk as she reformed and stood in front of him. "I see you stopped trying to run away," Madara commented, sidestepping a piece of rock that they're still falling from Pain's tower. "I wouldn't be getting far," Hinata replied back. She looked around and noticed they landed pretty far from the main city. They were both surrounded by water and it was raining heavily. Home field advantage, Hinata thought. She would be able to put quite a fight surrounded by her natural element if Madara used fire techniques. "To think you had enough control over Senjutsu to break my seal," Madara stated, but stopped when Hinata snorted. "I may not be a seal master, but I can see when a seal hasn't been properly structured," Hinata said, narrowing her eyes. "I've never been much good in the sealing arts." Madara shrugged his shoulders. "Bullshit," Hinata scoffed, making Madara raise an eyebrow in interest. "Building arrays is the very first thing you learn. They provide the foundation to good overall stability. It's why learning the sealing arts without a teacher around is very dangerous. Without a good array, seals tend to blow up. It takes a skilled person to build a good array." Hinata paused, noticing the smile appearing on Madara, "but it takes a master to make this array stable enough not to blow up, but just that little bit weaker to be breakable. You set this up from the very beginning." Hinata finished and Madara's smile had turned into a smirk. "Perhaps," Madara replied with amusement. "You are sharper than people give you credit for. But my comment remains true nonetheless. You do have very good control over Senjutsu. Is this part of your grand scheme? I breaking the seal so that you can play with me?" Hinata wondered as Madara laughed. "Everything I do is part of grand plan, and you are the queen on the board," Madara replied as Hinata tensed for the fight. "And who is the king?" Hinata asked as Madara began building up chakra. "Naruto, of course. A king falls without his queen, and a kingdom falls without its king," Madara answered before his hands blurred towards the horse seal. "Katan Goka Makyaku, great fire annihilation." Madara drew his breath and unleashed a torrent of fire. The wave of heat completely vaporizing the falling rain on its path. Hinata raised her hand to shield her face from the heat as her body started liquefying. Moments before the fire connected with her, she completely burst into water and plunged into the water on the ground. She reappeared on the other side a few feet behind Madara and quickly rose from the water, her body regaining form as she pulled her arm backwards to strike. She thrust her arm forward, aiming at Madara's unprotected heart. But Madara wasn't an ordinary shinobi. He turned faster than she expected and caught her chakra-powered punch with an open palm, much to her shock. It was then she noticed that he had his Rinnegan activated and had simply sucked the chakra from her fist, rendering her chakra-powered punch useless. Hinata immediately slipped from his grasp and jumped backwards, gaining some distance. She crouched on the ground, immediately going through Hansel's Hijitsu Mugen no Aim, secret technique, endless rain. The heavy rain was laced with chakra and she could already start to feel her surroundings. Interesting, Madara thought to himself, noticing his chakra being absorbed by the rain. It was a pesky amount to someone like him, but it was chakra nonetheless. He looked up and noticed that her Byakugan was activating, her veins slowly bulging. He would let her have the first move. He could feel Hinata scrutinizing him in every way possible. He absorbed part of my Senjutsu chakra but had no effect on him, Hinata mused in thought. His chakra's reserves were massive, being on par with Naruto. He wondered how much time she was going to take. He noticed a small twitch in her feet as she blasted forward, the water rippling in her wake. Enough with the clones, Madara snarled, backhanding the charging Hinata as she burst into water. Just as Madara said those words, another set of 5 clones burst from the water, surrounding him. 2 black rods of metal rose from his palms, one in each hand. With a graceful twirl, all of Hinata's clone were slashed and destroyed in the blink of an eye. This is boring, Madara sighed until he felt a pulse of chakra. Kaimon, gate of opening, Kai. Hinata thought, sending a burst of chakra to her brain and opening the first gate. She coiled before blurring forward at tremendous speed. Madara's Sharingan could only watch as Hinata flew towards him. Time seemed to slow down as Madara brought his arm to block Hinata's punch. Hinata was getting closer and his arm wasn't in the right position still. She was a few inches away and his hand was barely away from her outstretched fist. Madara's eyes widened when a small water whip latched onto his arm, restraining his movements. His attention shifted back to Hinata as her fist connected with his jaw. Madara's skin rippled and his face twisted into unnatural angles. He could swear he heard a cracking sound as he blasted backwards, tumbling through the water until he regained his balance and stood up. He looked down and noticed a few drops of blood falling to the water. He licked his lips, savoring the metallic taste. It's been a while since I've seen my own blood, Madara said, his lips parting into a smile. Hinata did not wish to stand still and wait. She ran forward once more, taking advantage of her temporary increased speed to match Madara. Madara smirked mere moments before Hinata touched him. Katan Heijingakure no Jutsu, hiding in ash, Madara took a deep breath and expelled a chakra-infused ash that covered a wide area. Hinata cried as her skin was burned for being caught in the middle of the fire jutsu. Madara watched as Hinata jumped away from the ash cloud, her skin sizzling and regenerating. All her burns gone in a matter of seconds. Interesting. Your healing factor is similar to Hashirama's, Madara commented to himself. Katunde Goenka, Great Flame Flower, Hinata watched as Madara took a deep breath once more and launched countless fireballs. It felt like it was raining fire, the whole sky taking an orange tinge of color. This is ridiculous, Hinata thought in disbelief as she looked at the raining balls of fire. Each one was the size of a standard fireball, and there were dozens of them. She jumped away as a fireball landed close to her, closing her eyes in the process. Suetun Baku Swashua, Great Exploding Water Wave, Hinata clasped her hands as the water on the ground started swirling furiously. Seconds before Hinata was overrun with the fireballs, a huge tornado of water burst from the earth. Hinata's hair fluttered violently as she poured her Senjutsu chakra into her water attack. The tornado of water roared into existence, toppling the great walls of the rain village in height. The fireball crashed into the waterspout harmlessly. With a shout from the Hinata, the tornado stopped spinning but the water remained perfectly still. Madara watched as the tornado started changing shape into a massive water wall, spanning a wide spread. And with that, the water wall charged forward like a tsunami. The flames sputtered and died instantly, snuffed out like candles under the huge volume of water that poured down. The sky seemed filled with water and for the first time, Madara felt small. The wave curled on itself and crashed down on the ground, the earth quaking on its wake. Shinra Tensei, Madara bellowed, pushing the incoming wall of water. His eyes widened as his pulse of gravity did nothing to the wave as it simply wrapped around his body from all sides. From the left. From the right. From the back. From the sky. His Susanoo was brought into existence as his form was swallowed whole by the wave. Madara's Susanoo stumbled within the water, trying to regain balance but unable due to the rustling of the strong current. His Susanoo formed to 2 large swords and stabbed them deeply into the earth, stabilizing himself deep beneath the ocean Hinata had just created. Madara looked up to see Hinata standing on top of the water while he was buried beneath it. He had never seen such pure, crystalline water. He was broken from his thoughts when he heard a cracking sound and saw a crack line appear on his Susanoo. It was breaking under the pressure of the water. His eyes widened when he saw that the whole rain in the sky seemed to stop and start converging into one massive ball in the sky. "Looks like she is worthy after all," Madara commented as Hinata brought her hand down with a shout. Mizuchi, Hinata roared, a serpent-like creature taking shape. It opened his large mouth, showing razor-sharp fangs before plummeting to the earth and sinking into the water, heading straight towards Madara. Madara watched in fascinating as the serpent swallowed his Susanoo, placing unimaginable pressure. His Susanoo was giving under the pressure. Madara's eyes glowed and his armor revolved into the next stage, gaining another reinforcement to withstand the tide. But even that was not enough. His humanoid was getting buried in the ground by the pressure of the dragon. The Susanoo crossed all four arms around his main body, but it was still cracking. And mere seconds later, the legendary shield of the Manjikyu Sharingan gave out and shattered like glass. Madara was going to follow the same path until a smirk crossed his lips and he closed his eyes in concentration. Worthy indeed, he laughed in thought. A large explosion rocked the whole grounds and village. Hinata cried as she was blasted back and the water shot into the sky, creating mini tsunamis. She watched as a monstrous figure rose from the water and stood tall in front of her. Hinata could only watch in despair as Madara summoned his perfect Susanoo. And just like Naruto, Madara's Susanoo was imposing. His armor was just as big as Naruto, and from the chakra it was leaking, she could guess that it was equally powerful. What was she supposed to do against such colossal warrior? Against a shinobi that defied the meaning of strength? "You should feel proud," Madara said from the top of his Susanoo. He stood floating in the diamond-shaped figure in the Susanoo's forehead. "Only Hashirama has ever forced me to summon my perfect Susanoo." Hinata, however, didn't know if she should feel proud or horrified. He and Naruto were more similar than she thought. They had similar builds, mannerism, and even their powers were similar. Except she had never fought against Naruto using his full power, because she knew very well just what he could do. Hinata tensed as the Susanoo gripped the sword tightly. Susanoo, the Sharingan greatest offense and also its ultimate defense. Madara unsheathed his sword with lightning speed, unleashing a powerful shockwave that ripped through the earth. Suetun Suro no Jutsu, water prison. Hinata jumped as far as she could, immersing herself in water bubble as the shockwave crashed against her and she was propelled backwards. Her water prison shattering against the power of the shockwave, barely able to dull the initial impact. Hinata twirled midair and landed gracefully on the water. "Even liquefying my body didn't stop the attack from hurting me." Hinata grimaced in thought. "I guess I don't have any other choice against this," Hinata muttered, steadying herself against the tremors caused by each step of Madara's Susanoo. "And what can you do?" Madara asked with amusement. "Hashiman Tanku no Jin, 8 inner gates." Hinata grimaced, knowing full what she was about to do. She channeled the remaining of her Senjutsu chakra into her heart and placed her thumb against her chest. "Kai!" Hinata roared, and at first nothing happened. Suddenly, a shockwave was released from her body, strong enough to draw Madara's curiosity as he stopped his advances and watched in curiosity what Hinata was doing. Hinata's aura skyrocketed as the air around her swirled furiously. The ground started cracking and caving from her chakra pressure alone. Her hair stood on end as her skin gained a pale purple outline. The purple outline started gaining color, getting brighter and brighter, completely enveloping her form. Her hair danced in the wind and her Byakugan started gaining an unnatural glow as her raw Senjutsu chakras saturated the air. "Oh?" Madara commented with a raised eyebrow as he gazed into Hinata's shrouded form. She was certainly putting out a lot of chakra. He would bet that the whole rain country would feel both of their chakra by now. Hinata took a deep breath, steadying her breathing against the maelstrom of chakra in her system. She charged her arms with so much chakra it became visible to the naked eye, and with that, she leapt. Madara lost track of her as she jumped. She had gained speed. He stood still inside his Susanoo, waiting patiently for Hinata to make her move. He didn't take long until he felt a mountain smashing against his back, forcing his massive Susanoo to stumble forward. Madara instantly looked backwards, seeing Hinata with her arm extended against the Susanoo back. Madara blinked at the power behind her punch and she was gone once more. What the? Madara felt her approaching from the front this time. He didn't want to stand still and unsheathed his sword. With a flick of wrist he sent a powerful crescent wave of energy against the charging Hinata. Hinata looked up against the coming attack. Hack Hazangeki, Mountain Crusher, she thrust her arm forward, unleashing a powerful chakra burst mere moments before Susanoo's attack connected with her. Hinata's attack ripped through the energy wave, continuing and crashing against the Susanoo who blocked with both arms in X shape. She didn't waste any second and run towards the Susanoo at full speed just before leaping once more. She cocked her right arm backwards and smashed her fist against the Susanoo's right kneecap. Time seemed to slow down to Madara as her fist connected against the Susanoo's leg. Her fist connected with his leg with a resounding bang. At first nothing happened, but suddenly Madara heard a cracking sound and could watch as the Susanoo's leg cracked, splintered into pieces under the pressure of her punch and was launched off into the distance. Madara only looked in shock at his now missing right leg, but Hinata didn't stand still. Once she landed, she jumped upwards and delivered a powerful uppercut to the Susanoo. The massive shield rose into the air slightly just before crashing down on his back, the earth quaking under the colossal warrior. Hinata winced as pain coursed over her all body. The next blow would be her last. She jumped high into the air. Tsutenkyaku, heavenly foot of pain, she concentrated the remnants of her strength on her heel and hit the down Susanoo's chest with a powerful falling axe kick. Madara only watched as the air rippled when her heel connected with his Susanoo and his entire warrior immediately cracked and disintegrated into dust under the shockwave. Sho Shinra Tensei, Madara bellowed, countering the shockwave with a pulse of gravity, and everything turned into a blinding light as both forces connected with each other. The earth quaked as both forces matched against each other. Trees were uprooted, the rain stopped falling as even the massive walls of the rain village resonated under the massive shockwave. The dust started clearing off and the sun started shining through the clouds. Ugh, Madara grunted, lifting himself out of the rubble with one final push. All the water had been vaporized. He got onto his feet and stumbled slightly before regaining his balance. He spat a mouthful of blood as he looked around, noticing for the first time the devastation Hinata's attack had accomplished. There was nothing around them but a large crater. Madara grimaced in pain when he looked at the stump that used to be his left arm. The force of Hinata's full power had enough to destroy his perfect Susanoo and take his left arm with it. Madara started walking forward, moving towards the center of the crater. He strained his eyes and saw Hinata kneeling in the middle of the blast zone, her breathing slow and shallow. She stood completely still, blood dripping slightly from her mouth. Her senjutsu marks were long gone from her face, and replaced by signs of pure exhaustion. To think, Madara said, stopping a few feet from her. That even for just a moment. You were stronger than me. Madara chuckled aimlessly, taking a deep breath. If I had been on the same level when I faced Hashirama back in the day, you would have won, Madara said, his breathing returning to normal. To open the 8 gates and live. You are truly amazing, Madara said with pride. Zetsu, Madara called, and the white clone popped from the ground. Take her to the hideout and patch her up, Madara ordered, and the clone nodded, moving towards Hinata. It's nearly time, Madara said, looking at the sky and bathing in the rare sunlight of Amagakure. Arghhhhh, Madara's head snapped to the source of the scream. The screaming was coming from Zetsu, and he could understand why. Zetsu had been pierced right through the middle of his chest by what seemed to a pure white blade of some sort. Zetsu gripped the blade as he was lifted into the air as if he weighed nothing. Tomagoroshi no Haikatsu, all-killing ash bone, he heard Hinata whisper faintly and could only watch in shock as the Zetsu clone started rotting and crumbling until he was nothing more than a pile of ash on the ground. Madara looked in astonishment as the white blade receded back into Hinata's outstretched arm, disappearing deep into her open palm. The Shikatsumiyaku, dead bone pulse, Madara whispered in shock. It wasn't possible. This wasn't some bloodline you could awaken like the Sharingan. You were either born with it or you lucked out. This bloodline had only been seen in the Kagaya clan, and even among them it was a rarity. If things couldn't get any worse, Madara watched completely frozen as Hinata's wounds disappeared, her gashes mended themselves together and the blood dripping from her mouth was simply reabsorbed back into her body. Even her face was losing signs of exhaustion. A side effect of the bone-dead pulse? An external healing factor to compensate the usage of bones, Madara mused, watching her intently. Madara's jaw hit the floor when her hair started turning snow-white in color. It began in her head and started branching out until the end of her hair. What the hell is going on? Madara cursed. He didn't like not knowing what was happening. Is she an Uzumaki now? Madara growled, only seen the hair turning white on the Uzumaki clan, after their members broke their limits. But that couldn't be. His Sharingan could still see her chakra. She hadn't expended all of it. She still had enough, but she pushed her body too far with the 8 gates. He watched as Hinata took a deep breath and looked up, towards him. He was half expecting a couple of horns and an eyeball in the middle of her forehead by the going of things. Madara just gaped as he watched Hinata's eyes glowing a light blue. They were changing, he could see it clearly with the Sharingan. The hollow look of the Byakugan was gone. It was being replaced by a pitch-black pupil and a bluish, flower-like pattern around it. Her eyes glowed and the vein bulges around her eyes disappeared. A new Jujutsu? Madara muttered in disbelief. The Hyuga clan had been around for centuries and there never was even the faintest whisper of an evolved Byakugan. But Madara couldn't deny his eyes as the evidence stood right in front of him. He watched as she stood up in silence and just stared at him with her new eyes. He could swear she had a faint smile of her lips. And was her hair moving? Madara blinked as her hair started waving behind her back, but there was no wind around. Nato, inner path, Hinata smiled as her hair lengthened considerably. Tojibari, rabbit needle hair, Hinata launched countless hardened needles from her hair. Madara immediately activated his Susanoo to block the incoming attack. He was surprised to see the needles digging themselves deep into his Susanoo. His shield had barely been able to block the ferocious attack. It seems she hasn't lost any accuracy with her new eyes, Madara thought, noticing that every single needle was aimed at vital points. Madara looked as the attack stopped and Hinata sprang forward. She seemed slower than usual but still faster than most shinobi he had ever faced. Madara braced himself as Hinata closed the distance in the blink of an eye. She threw her fist forward and Madara was about to block it when a bone burst from her hand. His eyes widened as he sidestepped the attack and immediately ducked under a swipe. He watched as the bone sliced a few strands of his long hair and saw the hair disintegrating to dust before his very eyes. Can't let her touch me with those bones, Madara thought. He was curious about her bones. They seemed different from what he heard about the dead bone pulse. The Kagaya clan could use bones as weapons, but that was about it. He never heard of bones destroying anything they touched. Madara was broken from his thoughts and lashed out a lightning-fast kick to her chest. He was surprised when several bones popped from her ribcage to block his kick. His eyes widened as he immediately jumped backwards, discarding his right sandal as it disintegrated from being in contact with her bones. A dangerous opponent, Madara thought with a smile, but it too late for fighting her again. Even with the new awakened Jujutsu, her chakra reserves were depleting. She was tired, even if she didn't want to show it. He saw as Hinata took a step back and looked around as if she was being cornered. Madara watched her with curiosity. Hinata suddenly sprang to the right and thrust both arms forward, piercing what seemed to be thin air. Madara stood frozen as the shadow he had projected with his Rinnegan crumbled into dust. But it wasn't possible. Only someone descended from the Sage of the Six Paths could project, feel or see the shadows. And only someone with his chakra could harm them. Who are you? Madara thought with narrowed eyes. She turned around and focused her new blue eyes on him. Madara swung his stump of an arm, throwing blood into her newly awakened eyes. Clearly Hinata didn't expect it as she stumbled backwards and clutched to her eyes. Gakido, Pretapath, Madara said, grabbing Hinata by the neck and absorbing the remaining of her chakra. Hinata gasped as her remaining chakra was stolen. Her eyes started losing their blue hue and turned back to their usual hollow look of the Byakugan, and alongside it, her hair returned to the dark blue color as well. So you can turn those eyes off, Madara mused as she blacked out, putting an end to the battle. Madara gently lowered her to the ground and watched as another Zetsu came and took her away. How intriguing, Madara said out loud, thinking back to Hinata's eyes. Man, Azuna said, stepping into the battlefield. She did a number on you, Azuna chuckled, pointing to his now missing arm. Indeed, Madara mused. I may have underestimated her. I didn't expect her to use the 8 inner gates battle formation. Tell me, Azuna. What do you know about the Hyuga clan and the Byakugan? Few days later, Hinata was healed by Zetsu and her chakra sealed once more. She was back to step 1, being trapped in a room with the only visits being Azuna with her food. However, that provided her with time to think. Time to think about her new eyes and specifically her dead bone pulse bloodline. That surely explained all the pain she had been feeling in the last weeks. But the question remained. What triggered her change? Naruto seemed to know, but then again, he knew everything. She heard a rustling outside of her room. Just in time, Hinata thought, as she expected Azuna to walk in with her meal. She was surprised when the door opened and Madara stepped inside, empty-handed. She watched carefully as Madara approached and placed a single finger on her forehead, breaking her chakra seal. Hinata felt her chakra returning and immediately stood up and ready for round 2. Madara for his part just stood still, watching her with amusement. You are free to go, Madara said, and she blinked. What? She asked. She must have heard wrong. You are free to go, Madara repeated, restraining to laugh at her stupefied face. Why? Hinata almost whined. You served your purpose, Madara answered and stepped out of the room. Hinata didn't wait for him to change his mind and immediately bolted out of the room. In a few short minutes she was long away from the Rain Village. End flashback, and now I'm here. Hinata finished her tale and looked around room, taking notice that mostly everyone was either gaping like a fish or staring blankly at her. She didn't blame them. It was quite the tale. Damn, Tobirama was the first to sum everyone's thoughts. Can we see it? Kushina asked and everyone leaned in, including Naruto. Hinata sighed and slowly opened her eyes and Naruto took a sharp breath. So you awakened it after all? Naruto smiled and Hinata nodded. Naruto looked at her eyes more carefully now. Her traditional white, pupilless eyes now had a light blue flower-like pattern. She blinked and the flower pattern disappeared, returning her eyes to the usual Byakugan state. To his surprise, he saw her hair returning to the old dark blue color. Well? Hinata asked, and everyone turned towards Naruto, waiting for an explanation. What do you know of this? You clearly knew I was going to awaken it, Hinata stated, and Naruto nodded. It never crossed my mind even for just a moment that you would awaken them. But when I did that scan on you, I could see the eyes blossoming behind your Byakugan. The same way I could feel your own body adapting to its changes, just like mine did when I awakened my Rinnegan. Naruto began and everyone listened in. It's called Tenseigan, Reincarnation Eye. Those eyes belong to Hamura Otsutsuki, Naruto said, and everyone cringed their faces in confusion. Hamura Otsutsuki was the twin brother of Hagoromo Otsutsuki, also known as the Sage of the Six Paths, Naruto said, and everyone stared in disbelief. How come you know all of this? Hashirama grumbled. When I met Hagoromo, I saw a few of his memories, both growing up and with him as an adult. I knew that Hamura possessed the Tenseigan and wielded the dead bone pulse as well. I guess all those abilities were dormant within the Hyuga clan and were triggered by Otsutsuki chakra, Naruto explained. And where did she get Otsutsuki chakra? Hashirama asked with curiosity. That would be my fault, Naruto sighed as everyone looked at him in confusion. I am Hagoromo's first transmigrant after all. Transmigrant? Hashirama furrowed his eyebrows. I don't know why you don't know this. You were Azura's transmigrant, Naruto said, making Hashirama's eyes twitch. Explain, Hashirama said, crossing his arms and taking a deep breath. Well, it's like this. You all know how chakra began, right? Naruto asked and everyone nodded. Hagoromo and Hamura were the first users of chakra. But the thing was that their chakra was extremely powerful. The same thing with Hagoromo's children, Indra and Azura. What happened was that when they died, be it a natural death or not, their powerful chakra remained stuck in this world, waiting patiently for a specific individual to be born. In Hashirama's case, it was Azura's chakra. When Hashirama was born, Azura's chakra latched onto you, giving you unnatural powers compared to most shinobi. I suspect Madara was Indra's transmigration. That would explain why he was the only who could match against you. The thing is that this chakra, while giving you increased powers, only latches on to a person who will develop specific personality traits. In Azura's case, it was his will and desire for peace and love, you said, where Hashirama said softly. When the transmigrant dies, this chakra of the original one detaches and waits patiently for the next newborn who will become the next transmigrant. In a way, you can call this reincarnation of past lives. Naruto finished and everyone had their jaws on the ground. And you weren't exactly born when I resurrected you, were you? Naruto chuckled and Hashirama nodded slowly. Sasuke was Indra's transmigrant, Naruto said out of nowhere. How do you know that? Hinata asked with curiosity. I could remember his chakra after my talk with Hagoromo, Naruto explained. Anyway, since I'm Hagoromo's transmigration, I am, in fact, Otsutsuki Naruto. And like my clan name, my chakra is Otsutsuki in nature, Naruto explained. That still doesn't explain how she awakened those eyes, Tobirama argued. It's because we became intimate, Naruto said and cleared his throat as everyone stared at him. You mean she awakened the eyes because you had sex with her, Jiraiya said before bursting in laughter. This is too good, he said between breaths. Explain please, Hinata muttered. Why do you think the whole sex only after marriage began? Naruto asked rhetorically. Because even today, sex is referred as something more than physical. In some cultures, having sex is like a ritual for the sharing of energies. That is why you awakened the Tenseigan, Naruto explained. I bet you share your chakra with her a lot, Jiraiya grinned, wiggling his eyebrows, making everyone facepalm. Jiraiya, have some decency, Tsunade yelled, smacking his head. Now what? Hinata asked. Now we train your new abilities, Naruto grinned and Hinata smiled. She was back home.